Chapter 463. What you mean is, the younger generation snatches the elders' things, the boys snatches the girls' things. If you can't get it, destroy it. These are all correct, right? This is called teaching by example. Could it be that fourth imperial brother is such a person? Li Hongyuan propped up his chin. This is interesting. Imperial father advocates benevolence, but fourth imperial brother's ideas are completely different from imperial father's. I wonder if imperial father would be angry if he knew. Li Hongyuan's mouth. There weren't many people present who hadn't experienced it before. He didn't say much, but it was too poisonous, the kind that could take someone's life. Just like now, if it reached Lu Qingdi's ears, the Gong Prince would most likely eat his head. The Gong Prince suppressed his anger, because he had learned too many lessons. If he really lost his mind in anger, the end would only be worse, so he repeatedly reminded himself to calm down, calm down, calm down. Sixth imperial brother, as the saying goes, things can be eaten indiscriminately. These words can't be spoken carelessly. In the end, I'm still your elder brother. Slandering me like this, I'm afraid it's not appropriate. Fourth imperial brother's words are wrong. This prince has never eaten indiscriminately. After all, since childhood, this prince has always been picky. This is not good, this is not good, this is not good. This has always been said carelessly. Right and wrong are reversed, black and white are more interesting. So, fourth imperial brother, there are some words you can't say carelessly, especially in front of this prince. The Gong Prince pulled the corner of his mouth. Now he was a bit regretful. Originally, the matter his son caused had nothing to do with Jin Qin Wang Fu, but when he thought about the possibility of facing imperial father's punishment, he subconsciously wanted to escape the crime. It had become a habit. He didn't even think about it before blurting it out. Provoking Li Hongyuan, there was no possibility of escaping the crime, but one more crime was 9 out of 10 times. The Gong Prince even wanted to slap himself twice. Yu Yao is our younger cousin. She has quite a few nephews and nieces. So many people didn't fight with her. Only your son didn't show any respect to his elders. Fourth imperial brother also has the nerve to push the blame onto this prince. However, since fourth imperial brother said so, there is one thing you should know. This prince's things, this prince can give them to whoever he wants. If he wants to take them out, without this prince's permission, don't try. Even so, this prince wants to see who dares to criticize this prince. Sixth brother, if you ask me, maybe it's because you have too many good things in your residence, and fourth brother is envious. Since he can share cats and dogs, maybe he expects you to share other things as well. When it came to matters related to Li Hongyuan, the others had already learned to be smart. Even if the person he dissed was actually their sworn enemy, it was best not to get involved easily. This was because they might not be able to trick their sworn enemy, and they might even bury themselves. Therefore, when it came to this kind of matter, everyone had a tacit understanding to just watch. Now that someone actually interfered, they couldn't help but look over at the same time. 11 was really a newborn calf that was not afraid of tigers. The 11th prince was 15, and wouldn't leave the palace until next year. There was a big age gap between him and Li Hongyuan. Although he knew of Li Hongyuan's fame, in fact, Li Hongyuan had never done anything to these younger brothers. No matter how you looked at it, these younger brothers were the same person, his father's sons, nothing more. Li Hongyuan glanced at him, and when the others thought he was going to flip out, he just calmly withdrew his gaze. This was not what he had expected. The Gong Prince had hoped that the other side would share the firepower, but this time, Li Hongyuan didn't play his cards as expected. He couldn't do anything to Li Hongyuan, but he couldn't do anything to him. The Gong Prince's eyes flew over like daggers. 11, if you don't have your sixth brother's life, don't learn from him so easily, it's not good. The 11th prince was threatened, but he just shrugged his shoulders indifferently. This younger brother has always been self-aware. I'm not learning from sixth brother, I'm just saying what I think. If fourth brother thinks there's no such thing, then just don't admit it. It's simple, why should I care? Thinking too much and worrying too much, it's easy to shorten one's lifespan. How to put it, they seem to have a whole new level of respect for this younger brother. Today, he must have eaten the wrong medicine, daring to diss his own powerful older brother. People like him were the ones who truly had no power, no influence, and no favor, a little transparent. These adult princes simply didn't bother to pay attention to him, and even if he was an adult, they still had to see what his wife's family was like before they decided what to do next. Now, this little transparent didn't want to be a little transparent anymore. Jumping out to make his presence known before. Wasn't he afraid of breaking himself? After all, he was a prince, compared to many people, even if he was inferior, he was still somewhat inferior. As long as he knew his place, just like the sickly fifth prince, in the future, whichever brother ascended the throne, for the sake of reputation, he could continue to live a comfortable life, just like the current Gong prince. The 11th prince was just a pervert. A few years ago, he had already started eating meat. This originally wasn't a big deal, but now he recklessly jumped out. He was afraid that in the future, he wouldn't have the chance to continue hugging a beauty. No matter what the reason was, in short, Li Hongyuan wasn't interested. Of course, if one day this younger brother suddenly rose up and reluctantly became an opponent, Li Hongyuan would probably give him a look. However, even if he rose up now, he was afraid that there was no time. The current chaotic situation was bound to end within 2 years. This prince is in a good mood today. I don't want to care about any trivial matters, don't come looking for this prince. When everyone heard this, they immediately understood that Li Hongyuan was no longer pursuing the matter. Some people were regretful, but only the Gong prince rejoiced. It's just that, with a fixed mindset, he believed that Li Hongyuan only liked to deal with things now, and didn't like to settle things after the autumn. Therefore, many times he was tricked. No matter what kind of person he was, he would often choose the wrong target. Those who truly understood Li Hongyuan knew that his heart was smaller than the tip of a needle, and secretly plotting against people was his specialty. Therefore, the Gong prince really rejoiced too early. Think about it, if your son killed the birthday present he sent people to find for his wife, regardless of whether his wife had already given the present away or not, would you be able to easily get away without paying any price? Hee, you're really dreaming. The reason why he didn't deal with it now was still that sentence, because of Jingwan. Because of Jingwan's birthday, he wanted to make it perfect. If in the end it was ruined because of him, even if Jingwan didn't say anything, he himself would be depressed. After that, in order to not provoke the king of hell, everyone was quite well behaved, and the atmosphere was quite harmonious. The Gong prince sat for a moment, thinking about his Wang Fei's temperament. In the end, he couldn't sit still. He didn't want to make another stupid mistake because of Qin Shi, and be blamed by Li Hongyuan on him. Husband and wife as one. What did the wife do wrong that it was the husband's fault? That was all nonsense. The Gong prince only knew that, when disaster strikes, everyone flies away. Although it wasn't to this extent now, but if something really happened, he didn't mind pushing his wife out. After searching, he found that his Wang Fei really had left the Jin Prince mansion. The Gong prince's teeth itched with hatred, this slut who can't do anything right. If it was in the past, the Gong prince was holding the Gong prince in his hand afraid to fall, holding the Gong prince in his mouth afraid to melt. The Gong Qin Wang Fei was insolent both inside and outside the mansion. She punished the Gong prince's concubine, but the Gong prince had to coax her with kind words. That was because his father-in-law held military power. If he wanted to rise to the throne, he absolutely couldn't do without his father-in-law's support. It was just that he lowered himself and tried to curry favor everywhere. However, this father and daughter pair really dared to ride on his head, bossing him around. Because of a small matter, Qin Tianming was cold to him. He was doomed to fail, so why should he lower himself? The Gong Prince lost his patience with Qinshe, so Qinshe naturally suffered. However, Qin Tianming was still standing there, and he hadn't completely fallen out with the Gong Prince. Even if the Gong Prince didn't give Qinshe face, he still had some misgivings. The Gong Prince rushed back to the Gong Prince mansion, but there was no one there. The Gong Prince thought for a moment, then turned around and went to the Champion Marquis mansion. Coincidentally, because Qin Tianming's wife had some typhoid and wasn't feeling well, she didn't go to the Jin Prince mansion today to avoid bad luck. As a result, her grandson, who was supposed to be at the Jin Prince mansion, came back with her daughter. Her grandson was in a sorry state, covered with injuries and crying. Madame Qin still loved her grandson very much, so she hurriedly asked what was going on. The Gong Qin Wangfei came in and comforted her son with kind words, promising many benefits, before letting a maid take him to freshen up. When her daughter was talking, Madame Qin chose to stand on the sidelines. Madame Qin didn't agree with the way her daughter raised the child, but her daughter didn't take it seriously at all, saying something like, she only had this one son, and her son was the emperor's grandson, the heir of the Gong Prince mansion. In the future, he might be. She didn't care what he did. Listen to what she was saying, it really made her liver hurt. She really thought she was the emperor, but one day she kicked an iron plate, then she would know how powerful she was. Over time, it was hard for her to control her. Now she heard that she had provoked Great Elder Princess, but she still dared to say to her son that it was his fault. If she was really so capable, she shouldn't have come to the Marquis of Champion's mansion in a fit of anger. Madame Qin really wanted to slap her to death and tell her to get as far away as possible, so as not to implicate the Marquis of Champion's mansion. Of course, Madame Qin didn't care about the Marquis of Champion's mansion, but her branch. Anyway, although her branch lived in the Marquis of Champion's mansion, her husband and father-in-law didn't get along well. When the heir of the Gong Prince was taken away, the Gong Qin Wangfei began to vent to her mother in all kinds of ways, blaming Great Elder Princess and Jin Wangfei. In short, except for her, everyone else was wrong. As long as they didn't obey her, they were wrong. Although it was not organized, Madame Qin roughly understood the cause and effect. She was so angry that the blue veins on her forehead stood out. Shut up. Why did she give birth to such a thing, huh? She didn't have a filter and dared to say anything. If you have the ability, you can say these words in front of the emperor. Father will definitely be unreasonable and help them. Madame Qin was so angry that she slapped her in the face. Who gave you the courage, even daring to talk about the emperor? She was stunned by her mother's slap, but when she heard her mother's words, she dared to be angry but didn't dare to say anything. There's only the two of us here, other people can't hear. Moreover, mother, I'm the Gong Qin Wangfei, how can you hit me? This is offending your superiors. Madame Qin covered her chest and almost vomited blood. Okay, you're noble now, I, as your mother, can't even touch a finger of yours. The Marquis of Champion's mansion is small, it can't accommodate a big Buddha like you. Asking the Gong Qin Wangfei to take the heir and leave immediately, and don't come back in the future. The Gong Qin Wangfei also realized that she said something wrong and didn't say anything. After a moment she said, Mother, don't be angry, I also didn't choose my words carefully. Besides, if I go out with a slap on my face, how can I meet people? You've already lost all your face, what face do you still have to meet people? The Gong Qin Wangfei lifted the curtain and strode in. Wang Ye. In front of the Gong Qin Wangfei had long been unable to be arrogant. She subconsciously knew that she had done something wrong today, so she took 2 steps back in fear. Why are you here? Madame Qin wasn't surprised at all. Greetings to Wang Ye. Mother-in-law, please dispense with the formalities. The Gong Qin Wangfei gestured with his hand. Wang Ye is here to pick up the Wangfei heir. If she dared to say no, then she didn't need to think about the emperor's throne. She should be more straightforward, hand over the task at hand, and go home to take care of the child. Yes, sixth sister-in-law's first birthday after marrying into the imperial family, it's not good to be absent. That bastard boy knew that you weren't feeling well, so he came to see you. He was originally filial. If he was criticized, then it wouldn't be good, don't you think so? Lying with a straight face, this was the Gong Qin Wangfei style. However, many people had this skill, so it didn't matter. He didn't see Madame Qin's expression change, she even nodded as if it was a matter of course. That's right, Wang Ye should take the Wangfei and heir and hurry over. The Gong Qin Wangfei nodded. That bastard boy, where did he go? Logically speaking, it was just washing up and changing clothes, it wasn't a bath, how long could it take? The Gong Qin Wangfei turned and went out, personally looking for him. Wang Ye. The Gong Qin Wangfei hurriedly followed him out, afraid that the Gong Qin Wangfei would hit her son in a fit of anger. The Gong Qin Wangfei was really playing with the two children. What happened in Jin Wangfu seemed to have been forgotten beyond the highest heavens. He didn't see his father, but a certain child. At that moment, his face turned white with fright. The Gong Qin Wangfei also turned his head. He dared to make a scene in front of his mother, but was very afraid of his father. The lawless little overlord, at this moment, shrank back like a quail. Fu, Father King. The Gong Qin Wangfei expressionlessly looked at him for a moment, then his cold eyes fell on the Gong Qin Wangfei. He coldly snorted, flicked his sleeves and left. The Gong Qin Wangfei hurriedly pulled her son and followed. Although she was unwilling, she didn't dare to say anything. Mufei, where are we going? The Gong Qin Wangfei pulled his mother's sleeve. Jin Wangfu. I'm not going. He immediately exploded, unwilling to leave. The Gong Qin Wangfei hurriedly covered his mouth. You dead child, what are you talking about? Unfortunately, it was already too late. The Gong Qin Wangfei had already heard and turned around, because they were already out of the champion Marquis Fu's gate. His mood was no longer restrained, his face gloomy as if he wanted to eat people. The Gong Qin Wangfei was so scared that he hid behind his mother. The Gong Qin Wangfei protected her son. Just as she was about to say something, the Gong Qin Wangfei vigorously pushed her away, grabbing her son's shoulder. Not going? Okay, Ben Wang can send someone to send you back, but, from now on, you're not allowed to take half a step out of the Gong Qin Wangfu. Ben Wang will also write a memorial to your imperial grandfather, using your illness as an excuse to revoke your Wangfei status. What do you think? Now tell Ben Wang, are you going or not? Even if he was still young, he clearly knew what the Wangfei status meant to him, but right now his father was too terrifying. He was scared silly, unable to make any response. The Gong Qin Wangfei wasn't the only one who was scared. The Gong Qin Wangfei was the same. She couldn't care less. She rushed over and grabbed the Gong Qin Wangfei's arm. Wang Ye, how can you do that? You can't do that. The Gong Qin Wangfei shook her off, backhanded her. The Gong Qin Wangfei retreated a step, then fell directly to the ground, looking at the Gong Qin Wangfei in disbelief. Although it wasn't the first time he hit her, but right now they were at the gate of the champion Marquis Fu, this slap wasn't just hitting her face, it was also hitting her father's face. How could he dare? The Gong Qin Wangfei was condescending. Can't. Why can't I? If Ben Wang really did that, then it's all thanks to you, a good son. Look at what you've taught him. Hitting his elders, bullying a girl, is this what you taught him? If you can't get it, you'll destroy it. Is this your idea? How much ability do you have? How much face do you have? Because of you, because of this evil creature, Ben Wang lost face in front of all the brothers and officials, and you offended the great elder princess. Not only did you not want to apologize, you even dared to bring this disgraceful thing back to your mother's house. What? You did something wrong, and you still feel wronged. The Gong Qin Wangfei's lips trembled, but she couldn't say anything. If she dared to defend herself, she was afraid she wouldn't have a good ending. The Gong Qin Wangfei's gaze fell on his son. You remember, if your position as Wangfei is really gone, then everything will be your Wangfei's fault. After today's banquet, I'll give you two choices: move to the front yard, study hard with your teacher. Without Ben Wang's permission, you're not allowed to see your Wangfei, or you can follow your Wangfei for the rest of your life. After the Gong Qin Wangfei finished speaking, he looked meaningfully at the gate of the Champion Marquis residence. Humph, with a flick of his sleeve, he turned and got into the carriage. The Gong Qin Wangfei was in a daze. There was a palm print on both sides of her face, but the Gong Qin Wangfei's hand was much heavier than Madame Qin's, so there was no symmetry. She didn't understand why it was like this. Why was it all her fault in the end? The Gong Qin Wangfei's gaze inadvertently fell on her son, but what she saw was the alienation, vigilance, and even a faint hatred in her son's eyes. She did everything for her son, but her son was so easily instigated. For his own benefit, he didn't hesitate to abandon her, his own mother. He was just a little white-eyed wolf. The Gong Qin Wangfei stretched out her hand, as if she was making a final attempt to persuade him to stay. However, her good son's mouth twitched, and he ran towards his Wangfei's carriage with a thump-thump-thump. Her heart turned cold, but it only lasted for a moment. The Gong Qin Wangfei looked at his careful son in front of him, and then looked at Qin Shi through the window, his eyes cold. Still not leaving? Are you waiting for Ben Wang to invite you? The Gong Qin Wangfei slowly got up. The maid serving her wanted to help her, but she shook her off. Madame Qin heard from the maid what happened outside the gate, closed her eyes, took off the prayer beads on her wrist, and quickly turned them. She was very clear. The Gong Qin Wangfei was just acting for her husband to see. Because of her husband's indifference to him, he was telling them that he had lost his patience. Madame Qin thought of her own daughter. In the end, she was her own flesh. How could she not feel distressed? Speaking of which, her original temperament was not bad, and she could be considered smart, but in the past few years, she had been spoiled by the Gong Qin Wangfei, and she really thought that the Gong Qin Wangfei was doing it for her, so she forgot herself, lost her original heart, and became more and more unsightly. The Gong Qin Wangfei was in the carriage, and the maid helped her put on makeup to cover the red marks on her face, but no matter how much the foundation covered it, it couldn't cover the swelling. Returning to Jin Qinwang Mansion, the Gong Qin Wangfei took his wife and children to apologize to Great Elder Princess, looking very sincere. He had no choice. Compared with Madame Qin, he knew this and better, and it was better not to play tricks in front of her. If he annoyed her again and again, he would definitely suffer. As for the Gong Qin Wangfei, no one knew what his father said to him, but when he apologized to Yu Yao, he looked very sincere, completely different from his previous arrogant appearance. Many people were surprised. They didn't know that the Gong Qin Wangfei taught his son so well, but whether it was true praise or mockery, only they knew in their hearts. In the end, Great Elder Princess didn't insist. After all, according to some people's meaning, if she didn't forgive them, they would be prepared to sincerely apologize, and when the time came, it would be her fault. Great Elder Princess sneered in her heart. If she wanted to punish someone, did she have to go through her brother? She had been living behind closed doors. Did she really have no connections at all? Well, do what you need to do. As a man, how can you hide among women? Yes, Aunt, you're right. I'll take my leave. Since he had achieved his goal, the Gong Qin Wangfei left quickly. The Gong Qin Wangfei, who stayed, became the object of everyone's discussion. However, the Gong Qin Wangfei was like a piece of wood at this moment. In the eyes of Great Elder Princess, she despised people like the Gong Qin Wangfei, who acted as if the sky was falling and the earth was collapsing, and she was even more disgusted by her than her previous arrogance. In contrast, the concubine of Prince Kang was more pleasing to her eyes. Although Prince Kang's second son was an accomplice, Great Elder Princess didn't blame the concubine. After all, she was not the legal mother, and the child was not born by her, so it was indeed not her place to take care of him. Moreover, it was rare that she was a smart person who saw through things thoroughly. As time went by, more and more officials arrived, and then a group of people were frightened by the living king of hell. When it was almost time, the banquet began. In fact, most people were satisfied with this banquet. Even the reserved female guests basically didn't eat any dishes that hadn't been touched. It couldn't be helped that the dishes were really good in color, smell, and taste. The smell uncontrollably went into people's noses and aroused their appetite. No matter how reserved they were, they still ate several times. They sighed in their hearts that this was what a banquet should be like. However, the chef of Prince Jin's mansion was really good. The ingredients used in each dish were the best. Although they belonged to the top circle of the whole Qi Yuan, they hadn't eaten some of the dishes on the table. Of course, they were embarrassed to say that because it was shameful. Of course, there were still some people who didn't eat much, including Jingwan. Because the bowl of longevity noodles before the banquet was so delicious that Jingwan was 80% full at that time. Later, many people proposed a toast to her. Jingwan didn't drink much, so her alcohol tolerance was naturally low. Halfway through the banquet, she was basically drunk. Most of the older noblewomen were more considerate and let her rest. Of course, not everyone had good intentions. The younger ones raised their wine cups and laughed like flowers trembling. How could the birthday girl leave halfway? How was it unkind to pretend to be drunk? The older ones nodded their heads in agreement. It must be said that these people didn't bully Jingwan because she was young and thin-skinned, so most of them would endure. Unfortunately, Prince Jin's appearance at the female guests' table really surprised many people. However, Li Hongyuan didn't look sideways. He ignored people who paid their respects and directly walked to Jingwan's side. He reached out and stroked her hair, drunk. Whether it was his actions or his expression, they all hid a tenderness that couldn't be dissolved. Wang ya. Jingwan got up but couldn't stand. Li Hongyuan hurriedly reached out to help her. I'll take you to rest. Without any explanation, he carried Jingwan up horizontally. With a little force, he suppressed Jingwan's struggle and stopped at Luo Lao Furen's table. After that, I'll have to trouble Lao Furen to help take care of everyone. When Jingwan wakes up, she will apologize to everyone. Who was the living king of hell? Let his king of hell's consort come out to apologize. Looking at how precious she was now, if she really chirped in the future and expressed her dissatisfaction with Jin Wangfei, he would be displeased. If he was displeased, the womenfolk present might not do anything, but their fathers, husbands, or sons might be in trouble. So, these words, it was fine to just listen to it. Each and every one of them hurriedly said that they didn't dare and let him quickly send Jingwan to rest. Because of this, until the end of the banquet, there were still some unmarried young ladies and even young married women who were absent-minded. The notoriety of the living king of hell was well known to men, women, old, and young in the entire capital. However, those who had truly eaten his methods were actually only a small portion of people. It was basically concentrated on those brothers of his and those courtiers who always wanted to make things difficult for him. The other people, especially the womenfolk of the noble houses, only knew about him through rumors. As the saying goes, public opinion can melt gold and accumulation can destroy the bones. After the exaggerated and erroneous rumors, coupled with Li Hongyuan's intentional actions, it was basically people who heard about the living king of hell. Even if on some occasions, if they accidentally met him, they would avoid him from afar. Or if they fancied his appearance, they would also be dissuaded by others and then rationally choose to give up. However, seeing the scene of Jin Qin Wang Fei treating Jin Qin Wang Fei, how could they remain indifferent? Especially those who had actually thought about Jin Qin Wang Fei and were now married but didn't live as they wished. It turned out that Jin Qin Wang was actually so gentle and considerate. It turned out that Jin Qin Wang wasn't scary at all. It turned out that even if Jin Qin Wang didn't treat other people well, he treated his own Wang Fei completely differently. Why couldn't they become his Wang Fei? It must be known that Jin Qin Wang had started to choose his concubines many years ago. If they didn't listen to those rumors, how could they miss such a man? If they didn't listen to those rumors, how could Jin Qin Wang be taken away by a woman outside the capital? They didn't think that Jin Qin Wang was acting because Jin Qin Wang didn't need to act for anyone to see. Even if he was acting, no man would do it to this extent. Their intestines turned green and coupled with jealousy corroding their hearts, how many people unconsciously tore their handkerchiefs. In contrast, some unmarried young ladies were eager to move. Jin Qin Wang didn't even have a single tsifei, let alone a concubine. They didn't need to worry about Jin Qin Wang's cruelty and might even be able to obtain his favor. Coupled with the monstrous riches and honor of Jin Qin Wang Fu, what could compare to this taste? Even if Jin Qin Wang Fei was a jealous woman, as long as Jin Qin Wang protected her, what else was there to worry about? A group of old noblewomen could see it clearly. Some were disdainful, some were indifferent, and some lamented, evil creatures, ah evil creatures, each and every one of them was bewitched. If they continued to indulge like this, no matter if they were married or not, they wouldn't have a good life. Married, if they always fantasized about Jin Qin Wang's gentleness and ignored everything else, or if their husband knew about it, would they want to enter the family temple, or would they want to be divorced? Unmarried, if they always wanted to choose a husband based on Jin Qin Wang, would they still want to marry? Each and every one of their hearts are higher than the sky, but I'm afraid that their lives are thinner than paper. Who was Great Elder Princess? Her words were not polite at all. Who do you think you are? Do you really think that you can be a Qin Wang Fei with any identity? Even if Jin Qin Wang is a jinx to his wife, it's not because he lowered his status and married any woman. As the saying goes, different people have different lives. Even if you marry into Jin Qin Wang mansion, you may not have the luck of being a Qin Wang Fei. Instead of living a good life, you think about those things all day long. You deserve it if you don't live a good life. The surrounding noblewomen didn't answer. They were all used to leaving some leeway in everything, so they wouldn't say anything to offend Great Elder Princess. However, they all knew that Great Elder Princess was right. They were all experienced people and had seen everything. It should be known that although Luo Peishan was a first-class official, Jingwan was not the legitimate daughter of the eldest son's family. Besides, her father was completely incompetent, so she couldn't be a Qin Wang Fei. It was better to recognize Great Elder Princess as her adoptive mother to raise her status. Even if Lu Qingdi was crazy about his sixth son's marriage, he would not lower his standards too much. Besides, even if Great Elder Princess wanted to adopt a daughter, she wouldn't do it casually. Even if it was Lu Qingdi's idea, it had to depend on Great Elder Princess's own wishes. Even if her status was high enough, as the saying went, different people have different lives. What was more, the King of Hell only chose that one person, and no one else could be chosen. Therefore, those who even blamed Jingwan were really unreasonable. Great Elder Princess, you don't have to care about this. In addition to luck and good or bad life, people still have to rely on themselves. Madame Luo said with a smile. Great Elder Princess nodded and said, "You're right, madam. However, that evil creature is also a source of trouble. Even if he loves his wife dearly, he can send his people here and then ask the maids to send her back. Why does he have to go there by himself? It's normal for young people to be impulsive occasionally and forget other things when they're in love. Everyone has been like this, so there's no need to worry too much about it. An old princess said with a smile. Aunt, you're right. Great elder princess nodded. Mammy Gong stepped forward at the right time and said, Madam, the theater is ready. Do you want to go there now? Since Prince Jean had entrusted Madame Luo, he naturally asked for her opinion at this time. Madame Luo asked for the opinions of others, so they all moved to the seats. The opera troupe of Prince Jin's mansion was raised by himself, so it was naturally different from the ones outside. Instead of watching the play together, the male and female seats were directly divided into two parts. The men watched the male opera troupe, and the women watched the female opera troupe. For many people, it was the first time for them to watch a play in such a way, which was quite novel. After all, it was common for male singers to sing Hua Dan, but it was more difficult for female singers to sing Wu Xing. It didn't matter to the female guests, but in the male guest seats, some people were eager to watch a pure female performance. Li Hongyuan was also generous. Okay, they could exchange the second half of the performance. However, those who had evil thoughts were destined to fail. After all, Jingwan had already sent away the performers who were willing to leave. As for the rest, as long as they didn't have any evil thoughts, Jingwan would naturally protect them. For such a trivial matter, the King of Hell had always been obedient to his wife. Asking the King of Hell to take a woman from him, haha, in the two neighboring courtyards, there were endless sounds of babbling, and from time to time, there were cheers and applause. However, in the female guest seats, there were always girls who couldn't sit still. For various reasons, they wanted to go out for a walk and exercise, and the place to exercise was the courtyard of the male guest seats. What are they doing? Their thoughts are clearly written on their faces. Shameless. Yuan Qiao sat beside Sun Yijia and said indignantly. Why do you care about them? Anyway, at most, they are just thinking about it. Can a toad eat swan meat? Sun Yijia didn't take it seriously, but the words that came out of her mouth were also poisonous. Although she didn't like Li Hongyuan, it didn't mean that she was willing to let other women covet her sister-in-law's husband. Yuan Qiao burst into laughter. In fact, the Luo family's thoughts were similar to theirs. They didn't have a grudge against her grandaunt, so they naturally wanted her to be well. In the end, it was Great Elder Princess who didn't like her and wanted to steal her goddaughter's husband. We're family. Watch out for yourselves. Don't do anything shameful. As an elder, it was shameful to have such a girl in the family. However, the girls basically gathered together at a certain distance, so it was difficult to control them. What was more, they were afraid that they would make a big noise, which would be even more embarrassing. Now that Great Elder Princess had exposed them, they really wanted to bring back their evil girl and strangle her to death. Fortunately, only a few of them really did so, and most of them were still rational. Great Elder Princess, His Highness has been in the main courtyard for an hour. Nanny Gong, who was guarding by the side, said softly. Well, the prince had long been gone. Those who tried to meet him by chance were in vain. Jingwan was sent back to the main courtyard by Li Hongyuan. At that time, she vomited so much that a lot of filth was vomited on Li Hongyuan. Li Hongyuan frowned. Compared with the discomfort caused by the filth, he cared more about Jingwan. He quickly cleaned up and took care of Jingwan in person until she drank the hangover soup and fell asleep. At this moment, Jingwan was almost asleep and sober. Li Hongyuan happened to go to see her, so she hugged Li Hongyuan tightly and didn't want to let go. Jingwan couldn't be blamed for being so clingy. Although she was drunk, she didn't drink too much. She could still remember everything. Li Hongyuan had gone to this extent for her, so how could she not be happy? Not to mention the era of male chauvinism, even in her previous life, there weren't many men who could go to this extent. Even if her heart was as firm as a rock, it was difficult for her not to love him. Li Hongyuan also held her in his arms and gently rubbed her temples. Still uncomfortable. Jingwan shook her head. Ah, Yuan is here. I don't feel uncomfortable. She was now as if she had been filled with honey. Li Hongyuan gently knocked on her forehead. It's useless to say nice things. You're still a stupid person. If you can't drink, then don't drink. Drinking is already giving face. Do those people dare to have any objections? Only you are so stupid to drink it. Most of them are elders. Jingwan was scolded, but she wasn't angry. So what if they are elders? Jingwan was helpless. You can ignore them, but I can't. When the time comes, the gossip will not only target me. Li Hongyuan kissed her forehead. It's been hard on you. One day, anyone in front of you can only do things according to your mood. It's natural not to do things that you don't want to do. Giving them a smile is a gift. Jingwan smiled. Why did this domineering style feel a little chinibu? What was there to feel wronged about? I know. I'll wait. It was a little perfunctory. When that day really came, Jingwan wouldn't be like this. It wasn't that she couldn't, but it was just the most ordinary of getting along well. There was no need for so many twists and turns. I've rested enough. Let's go to the theater. There are only 2 of us in the prince's mansion. We can't be absent all the time. It doesn't matter. Jingwan was helpless again. Here it comes again. Let's go, let's go. I want to watch the show. https://11/11807/10541560. Chapter 464. Li Hongyuan glanced at her and didn't say anything. Jingwan got up and let the maidservant dress her. And now this person was going to replace Qing Zhu and the others. She was 15 years old, but her skills in dressing and doing makeup were quite good. However, at this age, she could stay by her side for at most 3 years before she got married. If she hadn't prepared these people before she got married and didn't enter the prince's mansion to further train them until she returned from Jiangnan, Jingwan would have suspected that this person was selected by someone who didn't want outsiders to stay by her side for too long. However, there were advantages to being a little older. If she was too young, Jingwan would feel guilty when she ordered her around. Jingwan's eyes were half closed. Her thoughts were still on Li Hongyuan. Sometimes, she even suspected that a certain someone's IQ ate up his EQ. That was why his IQ was so high and he was always online. However, his EQ was so low that he attracted hatred all over the world. However, even if he attracted hatred, it didn't affect him at all. More often than not, he had to make others retreat. In addition, he used all kinds of tricks on her. Could you say that his EQ was low? It was completely impossible. His EQ was obviously off the charts. This was a combination of the right time, place, and people. Even the emperor couldn't be as casual as him. However, Jingwan didn't think that this opportunity fell from the sky for no reason. For today, her husband had done so much behind her back. Just thinking about it made her heart ache. Jingwan wasn't a person who reminisced about the past. At this moment, she wanted to know about his past. It was a pity that she wasn't involved in that period of time. Who knew that many years before they met, she was also a part of his life, a very important part. After preparing, Li Hongyuan found that the way his wife looked at him seemed to have changed a little. It made him a little confused. It was said that a woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. Looking at it now, his wife was no exception. Jingwan also didn't know Li Hongyuan's thoughts. Otherwise, she would have been angered to death. She was emotional once, and he could slap her into pieces in seconds. Was this called high EQ? It was obviously so low that it had no boundaries. Fortunately, Li Hongyuan would never say this kind of thing. Therefore, his EQ was definitely online. After preparing, Li Hongyuan held Jingwan's hand. The two walked side by side, unhurriedly in the direction of the theater. Along the way, Jingwan smiled from beginning to end. Her eyes were basically on Li Hongyuan. Li Hongyuan's expression was a little lazy. It seemed that he didn't respond to Jingwan. However, from time to time, he gently pulled or put his arm around her shoulder. Therefore, Jingwan, who didn't look at the road, walked steadily all the way. She didn't bump into anything. From here, the theater where the female guests were placed was closer. Although they weren't seated, Li Hongyuan still sent Jingwan in. He stroked her hair that wasn't messy at all and gently tidied her clothes that weren't messy at all. He whispered a few words to her. He might not have noticed it himself, but in the eyes of others, it was really gentle and affectionate. The restlessness that had been calmed down became more and more intense at this moment. Li Hongyuan lowered his head and kissed Jingwan's forehead. Jingwan hurriedly retreated and looked around like a thief. She seemed to reach out and smack him in a fit of anger. She seemed to grumble. At the same time, in the eyes of others, Fan Min was surprised and shy. She was still pretending. Everyone said that Jin Qin Wang Fei was a person who was used to pretending. It was true. She gritted her teeth and pulled out her handkerchief. She wanted to tear Jingwan apart and replace her. This kind of ugly behavior was clearly seen by those who weren't blind. As the elders, they really wanted to find a hole to crawl into. It was really too embarrassing. Of course, this was only one aspect. There were a few women who didn't even control their emotions and completely fell into the eyes of their mother-in-law. As a mother, how could she allow her son to be cuckolded by her daughter-in-law? Her eyes were like they were dipped in poison. Slut, not abiding by a woman's virtue, these kinds of words were the lightest. Also, even if they were angry, they couldn't blame it on Li Hongyuan. He didn't seduce them. He just treated his wife very normally. This was also his own territory. No one had a reason to criticize him. These people, when they went back, they didn't know how they would be dealt with. It was a pity that these young ladies and daughters-in-law didn't know anything at this time. They were completely attracted by Li Hongyuan. As for Jingwan, haha, that was because she automatically replaced Jingwan's face with her own in her mind. Jingwan urged twice. Only then did Li Hongyuan leave. He didn't forget to remind Jingwan's servant girl. She was in a good mood. Jingwan's smile naturally couldn't fade. It was just that when she approached, she couldn't help but stop. What happened? She was just drunk for a while. What happened? Why was there such a strong resentment? Not to mention the scene of Jingwan and Li Hongyuan getting along, Jingwan's current complexion didn't show any discomfort after being drunk at all. Her white skin was tinged with red. The corners of her eyes were a foxy color, as if they had been ruthlessly moistened. How could it not make some people who couldn't get resentment to the sky? If Jingwan knew, she would definitely cry out that she was wronged. Because she knew Li Hongyuan's nature, even if Jingwan was unusually happy in her heart, she didn't dare to take the initiative to kiss him. If she kissed him, she was afraid that she really couldn't leave the room. It could only be said that the malice was too strong and the resentment was too deep. Naturally, he would imagine something unusual. Jingwan remained calm and went upstairs. The atmosphere here was normal. Well, maybe she would soon know the reason for the abnormality downstairs. Jingwan greeted everyone with a sweet smile. She apologized for leaving the banquet in advance. If she didn't treat them well, please forgive her. Obviously, this kind of thing was quite normal. Besides, there was really nothing wrong with the things prepared by Prince Jin's mansion this time. Thinking of Prince Jin's attitude towards her, he wouldn't say anything. Because of her identity, she naturally couldn't go to Sun Yijia and the others now. Therefore, it was destined that she couldn't talk to her former best friend today. Great Elder Princess waved her hand and asked Jingwan to sit beside her. Jingwan didn't refuse and sat beside Great Elder Princess peacefully. Jingwan originally thought that her foster mother would say something to her. However, Great Elder Princess just watched the play carefully and asked Jingwan to sit beside her. It seemed that she just didn't have a place for Jingwan to sit. In this case, Jingwan could only feel helpless. However, she was not very curious about what happened next. Therefore, it didn't matter whether she knew it now or not. Even if she didn't know it in the end, it could only mean that it was not important. If it was important, she would definitely know it sooner or later. Because they were domestic performers, many of the later plays were actually arranged according to Jingwan's taste. After all, it was their duty to please their masters. Therefore, Jingwan was a little more interested in the play today. She felt that it was not bad and didn't notice the reason behind it for a while. However, for people like Great Elder Princess who liked to listen to plays more often, it was quite obvious. She tilted her head and asked, Jingwan, do you often listen to plays in the mansion? Jingwan didn't know why, but it seemed that there was no need to hide it. She nodded and said, not often, but I've heard it several times after I came back from the south of the Yangtze River. After all, sometimes it's quite boring and I have to find something to kill time. Great Elder Princess nodded and asked, what about your husband? Does he often listen to plays? At this time, Jingwan hesitated for a moment and said, when I listen to plays, he is almost always there. Great Elder Princess looked at Jingwan meaningfully and continued to listen to the play. These plays are arranged well. In fact, Jingwan was a little confused by Great Elder Princess's look. She still didn't know what she was up to. However, she knew that as her foster mother, she didn't mean any harm. She also thought that what she did was right. In fact, I don't know much about plays. Foster mother, if you think it's good, when you want to listen to it, you can tell me a sentence. I'll ask the troupe to sing it for you in your mansion. Okay, I'll have a chance in the future. Great Elder Princess didn't refuse. After all, she had a special relationship with Jingwan. If they were too distant, it would obviously be too much. The boundary didn't need to be clearly drawn all the time. In the second half of the play, Mu Fen came to Jingwan and said, Your Highness, His Highness has promised to exchange the two troops. Now, it's almost time. Do you think, Li Hongyuan didn't mention it to her before, but since it was her husband's decision, it wasn't a big deal, so Jingwan naturally wouldn't disobey. But, who suggested it? In Jingwan's opinion, it was definitely not her husband who suggested it. It's the other princes. Jingwan understood and said, I see. In that case, let's change it. Well, there was no need to ask for others' opinions. Anyway, these women usually watched the male troops. After all, they were not raised by their families. Every time they watched a play, there would be a lot of people. The troops were never allowed to walk around, so there were not so many taboos. In fact, there was even no physical wall between the two courtyards. The performers put on makeup and changed their costumes in the same place, but there was a partition in the middle. In this way, it was very simple to change the costumes. They didn't even need to disturb the people watching the play. In the next place, a group of performers would go on the stage. It was very simple. After the change, many people didn't even find the difference. They just thought that the performers on the stage were probably another group. Of course, the gluttons of operas could still tell at a glance. About half of the first song after the change, they suddenly found that the male guest side seemed to be more and more enthusiastic. It was so noisy that it even affected this side. It was so quiet before and basically had nothing to do with each other. Some people felt strange. What were these men excited about? Weren't they the same? Was it possible that the two sides' operas were very different, and the male guest side was particularly wonderful? In this way, someone joked with Jingwan, "Are Prince Jean and Princess Yu favoring one and discriminating against the other?" Jingwan really didn't know how to answer this question. How should she say it? She couldn't directly say that those men were naturally excited when they saw beautiful women, right? If she said so, she would be criticized. Jingwan had scruples, but Great Elder Princess didn't have any scruples at all. It's not to the extent of favoring one and discriminating against the other. It's just that men's bad habits are triggered. It's normal for their eyes to light up when they see beautiful women. Some people still didn't understand, but after being reminded by the people around them, they understood in an instant. They all shut their mouths and didn't want to ask anything. After all, the male guests had their husbands. Women always hated their husbands for being lecherous, but for their sons, they were always worried that there wouldn't be enough people to serve them. They were always so loyal to both sides. They complained about Jingwan in their hearts, but they also didn't dare to say anything. These people's reactions were reasonable. Jingwan was very calm and didn't care at all. No matter how those people praised, they could only enjoy their eyes. It was absolutely impossible for them to touch and eat. Great Elder Princess patted Jingwan's hand and said, "Don't worry about them. Men have bad habits, but women also have bad habits. The root of women's bad habits is that they know it's their men's problem, but they have to blame others and think that it's the outside vixens who seduced them and forced themselves to become resentful women. As the saying goes, it takes two to clap. If it's not the men who have bad thoughts, how can the women outside cling on to them?" Great Elder Princess said and sneered. Jingwan was a little surprised by Great Elder Princess's words, but it was reasonable after thinking about it. After all, no matter what kind of environment and background people were in, there would always be some outliers. If everyone's thoughts were the same, then there would be no ups and downs in the long river of history. Jingwan smiled. It was always more pleasant to get along with people who could resonate with her thoughts. Great Elder Princess didn't suppress her voice at all, so there were many people who heard her words. However, at least 9 out of 10 of these people were successful in cultivation. It was even the most basic thing that they couldn't express their emotions. Therefore, even if they were flustered in their hearts, they could still smile decently on the surface. When it was finally time to leave, most of the afternoon had passed, and most people basically chose to leave at this time. When they left, there were not many people who needed Jingwan's help, but there were also quite a few. However, when some young ladies talked to Jingwan, Jingwan always felt that they were a little sarcastic. Otherwise, they would look at her with hidden bitterness, as if she had done something very wrong to them. Jingwan couldn't help but have goosebumps all over her body. Then, she saw their elders frowning at them and apologizing to Jingwan with a smile, asking her not to mind and so on. Jingwan was still at a loss. She could only make perfunctory noises. Then, she recalled the incident at the opera house. She had forgotten about it. Now that she looked at it again, it was necessary for her to have a deeper understanding of it. She didn't want to ask others, but she could ask Nanny Gong. Firstly, Nanny Gong wouldn't hide it from her. Secondly, she had been here all the time, so she knew everything clearly. Nanny Gong told her everything in detail. After listening, Jingwan fell into a state of speechlessness for a while. Then, she cursed in her heart. Your mother, what was this? Ever since she married a certain person, that certain person's peach blossoms had basically never stopped. However, there was a premise, and that was that those people didn't know anything about the living king of hell. They only knew that he looked good and had a noble status, but they didn't know anything about his nature. Moreover, those peach blossoms bloomed one by one, unlike this time, where a large cluster bloomed all at once. Jingwan felt that perhaps this was just the beginning, and there were more and more lively things to come. It was said that Wang was dissolute and fond of beauty. In the past, the beauties by his side never stopped. However, after Jingwan came to the capital, the gossip about that certain person seemed to be from before she came to the capital. Even if he stopped releasing rumors at that time, it had been almost 2 years. After such a long time of fermentation, even a slow-witted person would have reacted. And today, his gentleness and consideration towards her became the fuse that completely blew up this matter. Wang cursed his wife, but wasn't she fine now? Moreover, he didn't say anything about cursing his concubines. With her at the front, what were they afraid of? Li Hongyuan didn't have a Zifei or concubines, but he was a Qin Wang. He had countless wealth, and even more, he had unfailing imperial favor. Even if he had a group of wives and concubines, it was a matter of course for people to think about him. Now, they were all gathered together. Even if Jingwan knew that he wouldn't have anyone else by his side, at least before he no longer loved her, it would be like this. And Jingwan was willing to believe that he would love her for a lifetime, so there was no need to worry about this problem. Jingwan's heart was still a little stingy. No matter who encountered this kind of thing, they wouldn't be happy. Those who stayed until the end were basically those closest to Jingwan. Because of the limitations of their status, those who couldn't talk to Jingwan before could now say a few words. Seeing that Jingwan's mood was a little strange, they naturally had to ask. Jingwan was very helpless. What else is there? My husband is too charming, attracting bees and butterflies, peach blossoms everywhere. Sun Yijia and Yuan Chaoqiao very unkindly covered their mouths and laughed. Hey, that's enough. Don't be like this. Jingwan only felt her hands itch and wanted to pinch them. Isn't this Qin Wang's matter? What are you worried about? Whether he rejects or accepts, it's all up to him. When that time comes, you can decide what to do. Sun Yijia said very straightforwardly. Jingwan chuckled. This matter can only have one result. Looking at your expression, I already know what the result will be. Then what else is there to say? It's purely a person worrying over nothing. Sun Yijia gracefully gave Jingwan a supercilious look. Yuan Chaoqiao also laughed mischievously. That's right, you should listen to cousin-in-law. After all, cousin-in-law has a lot of experience in this area. That's right, the peach blossoms that bloomed outside of Luojingbo might not be as good as Li Hongyuan's in terms of quality, but the quantity was definitely far superior. Every time they went out, they would encounter some kind of situation. Moreover, without the lethality of the King of Hell, it could be said that those people simply had no way of stopping them. Sun Yijia had long been calm about this kind of thing and even specially prepared a box for her husband to bring back those things that were accidentally left on him. Moreover, they couldn't be found from the original owner of the body. There was no need to secretly deal with them. Now, it was almost filled to the brim. Sun Yijia was quite used to this kind of thing and was even able to deal with those people who directly came to find her. Jingwan didn't really care about it in the first place. Now, all the gloominess in this life had disappeared. However, she secretly warned herself in her heart that she had to appear very angry in front of a certain someone. Otherwise, according to that certain someone's character, he might think that she didn't care about him, and then his illness would act up and destroy her in a second. As for hiding it from him, it was unrealistic. She could hide it from him, but those people outside would also try their best to get close to him. When they were almost done talking, Great Elder Princess, Madame Luo, and the others came over. Sun Yijia and Yuan Chao Chao hurriedly bowed to them. Great Elder Princess nodded and held them up slightly. Get up. Her eyes lingered on Sun Yijia for a moment. Yijia, you look good now. You are much more popular than before. Sun Yijia smiled. Great Elder Princess, you're right. I'm really living a good life now. That's good. Just live a good life in the future and don't think too much about other things. Yes. Great Elder Princess's eyes fell on Jingwan again. You know all about it. Jingwan smiled and nodded. Yes. Don't you have any thoughts? Great Elder Princess teased Jingwan with a little interest. I don't have such thoughts. It's just that I should be the one who should be angry when they covet my husband. Each and every one of them acted as if I had stolen their husband and treated me like a vixen. No matter how I think about it, it's a little strange, isn't it? Or I can't keep up with those people's thoughts. Now that I think about it, it feels like they are all wearing fashionable clothes, but I'm still wearing the clothes from 3 years ago. Jingwan said with a smile. The others also laughed. Great Elder Princess touched Jingwan's forehead modestly. You are so mischievous. You're an outsider, and they're locals in the capital. You stole them. Sun Yijia said with disdain. There's no time to force things in life. Those people are all at a dead end. If they were clear-headed, they wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Just wait and see. Those who were unhappy before will be even more unhappy when they go back today. They will suffer a lot before they know what's good for them. These people don't care about them, but I'm afraid that if they meet those who love their daughters, they will directly beg my brother. You're the only one in Hong Yuan's backyard. If they really ask my brother, he won't refuse. Great Elder Princess reminded her. Foster mother, don't worry. Father won't refuse, provided that the Lord agrees. We all know what kind of person the Lord is. If he doesn't agree, he will still refuse the people sent by my father. Seeing that Jingwan was so confident, Great Elder Princess seemed to understand something. Maybe this is your luck. Jingwan smiled and didn't say anything. In her heart, she was sure that maybe God really favored her. Of course, one day in the future, when Jingwan knew the whole truth, she probably wouldn't think so. Her luck was not because of God, but because of him. Well, as long as you know it in your heart, I'll go back first. Then, Yu Yao, who had been depressed since the death of the little tiger, came to find her. Yu Yao, foster mother has agreed to let you raise the little tiger and the little lion. Can you take them back directly? Yu Yao shook her head. Cousin-in-law, I don't want to raise them. I just took care of the little tiger for a while, and it died. I may not be able to raise it well. I don't want anything to happen to the little tiger and the little lion. Jingwan touched her head. It's not Yu Yao's fault, and it's not that I didn't take good care of them. I believe that Yu Yao will be able to raise them well. Besides, if you raise them in Great Elder Princess's mansion, what happened today will never happen again. Yu Yao was a little hesitant. Then, can I come back to pick them up later? Was she worried that when she saw them, she would think of the dead one? No, I can't. After being raised by me for a while, they will be familiar with my aura. If I take them back, they won't be familiar with me, and it will be difficult for them to be close to me. Take them back. I'll help you raise them together. Great Elder Princess didn't want her daughter to be depressed. Although it was more likely that she would think of something when she saw it, if she had something to do, she could distract her attention and the sadness would go away faster. In this way, Yu Yao didn't hesitate anymore. However, she didn't expect that what she took away in the end was the body of the little tiger. After Great Elder Princess was sent away, except for Yuan Chao Chao, the rest were all members of the Luo family. Jingwan didn't need to ask whether there were any male guests left, because the Luo family wouldn't stay for too long. Jingwan naturally seized the time to learn about the situation of the Luo family. First of all, the concubine's younger sister's marriage had basically been settled, which was Xie Renhui. As for the younger sister, she was far from being old enough. When they talked about marriage, the overall situation might have been settled, then they would have better choices. Among the siblings of this generation, the second son of the eldest branch was born by a concubine. He was the same age as Jingwan, but a little younger than Jingwan. He was also 16 this year. However, as a man, it didn't matter if he didn't get married. Although there were many people who wanted to settle down because of the good situation in the Luo family now, the Luo family insisted. Later, they learned that the younger Madame Wang was pregnant again. It hadn't been long since she was diagnosed, so her cousin and the members of the first branch were very happy. Jingwan was not so optimistic, mainly because she was worried that the child would be unwell when her cousin got married. However, it was a happy event, so Jingwan couldn't dampen their spirits. She just smoothly changed the topic to the third branch. Luo Rongping was paralyzed and could only lie in bed for the rest of his life. Madame Lu was calmer now and took care of him more carefully. Luo Rongping finally accepted the reality and no longer made trouble. It was much better than the beginning when he was paralyzed. Then there was Luo Jingying. Well, it was Luo Xiying's birthday now. Tomorrow was her 16th birthday. It was just that she was sitting in front of a lamp and sitting in front of a statue of Buddha. She didn't want to come out of it herself, but there was nothing she could do. But looking at Madame Lu's expression, she should be getting better. By the time Li Hongyuan came over, the Luo family had already taken their leave. Jingwan was a little resentful of someone who drove away her family. She stared at Li Hongyuan faintly. "What's wrong? Do you have something to say to your husband?" Li Hongyuan looked at Jingwan with a seductive smile. However, this smile didn't charm Jingwan. Instead, it woke Jingwan up immediately. The expression on her face became more and more unpleasant. She even reached out and poked Li Hongyuan's chest. "Tell me, why do you seduce women all day long?" Jingwan praised herself for her wit in her heart. However, Li Hongyuan looked at her suspiciously. "What do you mean by that? When did it happen?" "You don't know." Jingwan's resentment deepened. "Well, Wanwan told me clearly, and I knew." Li Hongyuan calmly held her hand. Then, Jingwan angrily scolded him about the peach blossoms outside. Li Hongyuan was not affected by her mood. On the contrary, he looked at the expression on her face with great interest. When Jingwan finished speaking, he reached out and pinched her face. "Wanwan, do you know what you're pretending to be in front of your husband?" Jingwan's expression was slightly cracked. She thought that her acting had always been good. "However, seeing that you're working so hard to please your husband, I'll be generous and let it go since you don't care about it." Perhaps it was because it felt too good, he couldn't help but pinch it again. "Hey, if you want to deceive your husband, you still need to practice more. However, when one day Wanwan can deceive your husband, I believe that there's no one in the world that Wanwan can't deceive. Work hard, your husband is optimistic about you." Jingwan was really depressed this time. "What are you talking about?" She pinched Li Hongyuan's waist. Unfortunately, not only were they separated by clothes, but because his flesh was too hard, she couldn't pinch him at all. Alright, Jingwan also knew that because her mentality was different, and because she didn't want to deceive him at all, her acting naturally couldn't deceive him. Li Hongyuan smiled and didn't continue to pester her on this matter. "In a few days, let's go to the farmstead and stay for a while. We'll stay there until we don't want to." Speaking of the farmstead, Jingwan suddenly remembered something that she had forgotten. Has the horse farm been built? You only remembered it now. It was built long ago. In addition, the rare animals garden has also been built. Compared to the animals in the mansion, those are all adults and not limited to the animals on the ground. There are many animals that fly in the sky and swim in the water. Jingwan looked at Li Hongyuan and was sure that he wasn't joking. She resisted the urge to hold her forehead. This man was really, every time he played big. According to his words, it was not as simple as a zoo. At present, the cost of building such a garden was absolutely beyond imagination. Jingwan felt that Emperor Luqingdi, who indulged him in every way, would scold him for being extravagant after knowing this matter, and those courtiers who turned a blind eye to him might want to criticize him. Can't you take it easy? Take it easy. What's that? Jingwan was once again defeated by this capricious and overbearing man. However, it was already built, could it be torn down? That would be a true waste of natural resources. That would be a shameful waste that could not be tolerated. All right, it's already built. If I don't take a closer look and play around, I really would be letting myself down. In any case, she was being led by a certain person to live extravagant days, so she shouldn't think about poor days. There was still some time before the sun set in the west. Jingwan pulled Li Hongyuan and prepared to rest. She had been drunk at the banquet. Her mind might be good, but her body was faintly resisting. Halfway back to the main yard, a message came from the front. He Zhihai and young general he had come with gifts to congratulate Wang Fei on her birthday. Today's banquet naturally included the He family. He Zhihai was not present. Before this, there was no news of him returning to Jing. So, he came to visit as soon as he came back. Li Hongyuan watched as Jingwan walked back. Are you going to see him? Wang Ye doesn't want me to see him. Jingwan smiled faintly. If Wang Ye doesn't want me to see him, then I won't see him. Li Hongyuan clicked his tongue. He was quite assured that Jingwan would see He Zhihai. That boy definitely wouldn't have any thoughts about Wan. He Zhihai was covered in wind and frost. He brought a few soldiers with him. From the looks of it, he hadn't returned to the He family and came to Jin Wangfu first. Although He Zhihai was an official now, his old man still didn't give him the right to lead troops. True New Mountains troops were already crippled this time. Therefore, He Zhenwei also submitted a request to return to Jing. He Zhihai wasn't restricted by anything for the time being. Therefore, he came back very quickly and no one knew. He Zhihai looked the same as when he left Jing. After all, it was only 2 months, so there wasn't much change. However, those who had come into contact with him before and after would keenly discover that he was different. This kind of change might not be obvious normally, but once he was on the battlefield, he would gradually evolve into a war god. This was what Li Hongyuan wanted. Therefore, he was naturally satisfied with He Zhihai's change. After He Zhihai gave his greetings, he casually took out the gift prepared for Jingwan. In an iron cage, there was a snow-white fox. Whether it was the appearance or the smell, it all showed that this fox was a fragrant fox. It was similar in size to the one that Li Hongyuan gave to Jingwan. He Zhihai didn't know Jingwan's birthday, but this was indeed a gift for Jingwan. As a fan of Jin Wangfu, he didn't know what to give to Li Hongyuan. He inadvertently obtained this fragrant fox and decided to flatter Jin Wangfei in a roundabout way. Husband and wife were one body, so it was the same to flatter either one. On this point, He Zhihai hit the mark by a fluke. After all, the number of husband and wife who weren't one body was far greater than the number of husband and wife who were one body. It was just that this fragrant fox didn't look too good. He Zhihai put the cage on the table and scratched his head. The journey was a bit fast, so it doesn't seem to be very good. There shouldn't be any problems, right? He said uncertainly, these things are delicate. Jingwan couldn't help but twitch the corner of her mouth. What kind of little overlord was this? This was clearly an idiot. Who would give a sickly animal as a gift? Especially when the other party's status was far higher than their own. This wasn't giving a gift, this was a curse. Oh. If it was another person, 8 or 9 out of 10 people would think that you had malicious intentions. If your intentions were murderous, maybe they would kill you in minutes. How big was this little overlord's heart that he would send this in front of the living king of hell? Li Hongyuan's face really was a bit dark, especially when this was something that was given to his wife. Jingwan covered the corner of her mouth and hurriedly called for the person who specialized in looking after the fragrant fox to come over and see the specific situation of this little thing. She hoped that it was all right. Otherwise, He Zhihai would definitely suffer. The person came quickly. After a careful examination, there was no big problem. It would be fine after a period of time. According to the person who raised the fox, the vitality of the fragrant fox was much stronger than people imagined. Jingwan's heart calmed down a bit, this idiot. Li Hongyuan's expression also calmed down, but it didn't mean that he was completely calm. He stood up, martial arts practice field, I want to see whether your martial arts have improved or not. Although he said it in such a dignified way, it didn't change the fact that he wanted to teach He Zhihai a lesson. He Zhihai was immediately excited, as if his whole body was burning. Jingwan's face was paralyzed. Sure enough, he was an idiot. Jingwan stood up slowly. Although she knew that he really didn't have any bad intentions, she didn't mind a Yuan teaching him a lesson. Jingwan went back to the main courtyard to sleep comfortably. The fight between the living king of hell and little overlord he was quite exciting and also quite satisfying. Even though little gangster he was still being suppressed, Li Hongyuan's suppression on him was much weaker than it was at the beginning of the fight. Only Li Hongyuan knew clearly about He Zhihai's improvement. Before he left Jing City for the northeast border city, his improvement was obvious. It could only be said that his improvement actually came from his stronger heart. Even though He Zhihai was lying on the ground for a long time and couldn't move, he was still very excited. However, he was still thrown out by Li Hongyuan. He Zhihai was used to being thrown out. He Zhihai didn't feel anything. He didn't want to get up, so he asked the bodyguard to carry him back. He Zhihai was carried back to the He family. The He family was scared. The surprise of them coming back early was gone in a flash. What happened? Did something happen on the way back? The bodyguard hurriedly denied and then quickly explained the matter clearly. After listening, old Madam He and old Madam He had the same expression. They didn't say anything. They just beat this bastard again. Look at what this bastard did. This kind of person deserved to be beaten to death. When He Zhihai was fighting with Li Hongyuan, he was very excited. But he didn't say anything. Now he was beaten by his own mother and grandmother. Even though the former felt more pain than the latter. On the other side, Jingwan slept for a while. After she woke up, she was applying medicine for Li Hongyuan. In the past, when she fought with He Zhihai, she would get injured from time to time. Although except for the first time, there were no obvious injuries. But this time, there were more bruises. Jingwan didn't say anything. She applied medicine to his bruises bit by bit. Finally, Jingwan said, "In the future, can you not fight with me anymore?" Although he didn't even blink his eyes, but Jingwan still felt distressed. "Okay." Li Hongyuan answered straightforwardly. Jingwan was a bit speechless. It wasn't the first time she said this. In the past, she didn't get this kind of answer. https:///11/11807/10751271 HTML. Chapter 465. In the beginning, Li Hongyuan might have been interested in fighting with someone who could make him use his full strength, but after all, he wasn't a martial arts fanatic like He Zhihai. Based on this point, his original intention was probably just to satisfy the regrets of his previous life. Once, twice, or thrice was the most he could do. The reason why he still fought later was naturally because of the most essential purpose, to train He Jihai. Now, although He Jihai hadn't finished his final form, it was enough. Jingwan was naturally happy that he didn't get injured every once in a while. However, I'm afraid that young master he won't give up so easily. His toughness is obvious to all. Jingwan chuckled. If this prince doesn't accept the challenge, what can he do? Besides, he's no longer a virgin. No matter what the reason is, if he comes into frequent contact with me, it will arouse some people's suspicions. As a good son, I have to be considerate and know when to advance and when to retreat. For him, this prince even gave up one of the few likes, so he should at least give some benefits. Li Hongyuan put on the clothes that Jingwan shook out, and his movements were neither fast nor slow. He Jihai's progress is godly, faster than expected. Perhaps in a year or so, I won't be his opponent anymore. His temperament is still somewhat unstable. If he doesn't have a goal, he might slack off again. He Jihai's potential is limitless, and it's unknown how strong he can be. Instead of letting him stagnate after defeating me, it's better to leave him hanging and let him continue to hone himself. Moreover, as long as I'm always stronger than him, I can easily make him obedient, and he won't be like a runaway wild horse that only focuses on martial arts. After a few years, some things will be engraved into his bones, and his temperament will also mature. This was a preparation to kill several birds with one stone. Saying so much, isn't it because your highness is worried that you will lose face if you lose? Jingwan teased. Alright, this was purely a joke. Li Hongyuan wasn't someone who didn't have the breadth of mind and temperament. Although this person was narrow-minded and vengeful, that was only towards love rivals and people who weren't on his side. Li Hongyuan tidied up his clothes and looked at Jingwan. Wan, what do you think? As long as you're happy. Although he did indulge her in many things and pampered her, this husband follows his wife tone on the surface still made Jingwan extremely speechless. Alright, let's not talk about this topic anymore. It's just that, Yuan has nothing to say about young Master He. Although his methods are a bit special, in essence, he serves him wholeheartedly. There are many people who work for you, and others don't receive this kind of treatment. Young Master He can't even be considered one of your subordinates. Wan, you have to know that there is no such thing as a free lunch in this world, especially when it comes to this prince. The more you ask this prince to contribute now, the more you will have to repay in the future. Your husband has never been someone who would work hard without asking for anything in return. He Jihai needs to be personally trained by this prince, so he should be prepared to be enslaved by this prince for the rest of his life. Therefore, it could only be said that He Jihai was unlucky. Which one of the others wasn't mature enough to do their own jobs? Only He Jihai, because his talent was too good, and he was someone who could be forced but not cowed by persuasion. Laozi and the others couldn't suppress him, so they couldn't teach him well. He fell into Li Hongyuan's hands, and the process of being trained was very painful. Then what about me? If I were to be ranked second in terms of what I got from Prince, no one would dare to be ranked first. So, Wan, don't tell me you don't know that you have been reserved by this prince for eternity. Therefore, there really wasn't anyone who was an exception. It was different from other people being enslaved. Jingwan was very willing. She happily hugged his waist and leaned on his shoulder. She was reserved by him, and correspondingly, he was reserved by her. Therefore, it wasn't a loss at all. Li Hongyuan naturally reached out and wrapped his arms around her shoulders. One day passed. Jingwan and Li Hongyuan sat down and started to deal with the matter. Because today was not only Jingwan's birthday, but also the day when the imperial noble consort's spiritual altar was to be started. As long as someone didn't give up, they would definitely make trouble. Moreover, they deliberately brought forward the date to today. The spiritual altar closest to the capital was less than 20 miles away. If they wanted to do something, and if they wanted to do something, and if they wanted to do something, and if they wanted to send the news back in time, it was the best place to start. However, Li Hongyuan had already made preparations. How could he let something unpleasant happen? Therefore, according to the news sent back, the heaven and earth ceremony was held before the start of the spiritual altar, and everything else was ready. Although the sudden collapse of the foundation didn't cause any casualties, it was definitely not a good sign. This matter was quickly reported to Lu Qingdi. Of course, Lu Qingdi was unhappy. His heart was beating like a drum. However, thinking that Momo was the goddess of mystery who had descended to the mortal world, Lu Qingdi gritted his teeth and ordered them to continue. There was no stopping. The spiritual altar must be completed on time. After receiving the order, the craftsmen had to clean the site. When the foundation collapsed, it was only a matter of seconds. However, it took a few hours to clean it up. However, at the end of the cleaning, they found something underneath. At first, the craftsmen thought of the stone tablet that was exposed after the collapse of the Shishan barracks. Could it be that this was something similar? They swept away the initial haze and sped up the cleaning. However, they became more careful. In the end, the thing was dug out. However, it wasn't a stone tablet. However, in terms of value, it was more significant to a country than a stone tablet. Because it was a wine cauldron. Although most of the people present were craftsmen, there were also officials from the Ministry of Works and a group of imperial guards present. There were many knowledgeable people who immediately recognized that it was one of the 9 cauldrons. The 9 cauldrons, to a certain extent, could be regarded as the true symbol of the country. After all, it represented the supremacy of the royal power and the unification of the country. If someone were to rebel with the 9 cauldrons, then regardless of whether the person sitting on the throne was a wise ruler or not, regardless of whether the weather was favorable, there would definitely be a lot of people who would raise the flag of rebellion. This was because the person sitting on the throne would be regarded as unjustified. Since he was an impostor, he should naturally be removed from the throne. However, the 9 cauldrons had disappeared for thousands of years. They hadn't appeared for several dynasties. However, it appeared now. What did this mean? It meant that Qi Yuan was going to rise. It was a great auspicious sign. Originally, the former Wei still said that they were the orthodox, and that Qi Yuan was a thief like the former dynasty, but now that this cauldron was thrown out, without a single word of nonsense, it could make them speechless, and could even change the positions of the 2 countries. How could they not be excited? Lu Qingdi was also waiting for something to happen. However, he didn't expect that he would be waiting for such a good thing. When he heard the news, he was so excited that he couldn't control himself. He immediately ordered someone to send the cauldron back to the palace. As he was worried, he even asked Yu Zhongqing to go personally. While waiting, he couldn't sit still and paced back and forth in the imperial study. Suddenly, he thought of something and hurried back to his bedroom. He took out the portrait of the imperial noble consort that he had carefully kept. Hua hua, you really are, you really are. At this moment, Lu Qingdi no longer had any doubts about the imperial noble consort's identity. Lu Qingdi was even narcissistic enough to think that the imperial noble consort came for him. Moreover, she had such deep feelings for him. Because the locations of the spiritual altars were not prosperous places, no one would excavate them unless it was a special situation. As such, no one would know what was buried underneath. This time, it was excavated because of the imperial noble consort, allowing one of the 9 cauldrons to see the light of day again. Needless to say, this was already the best proof. Regarding this matter, no one would raise any objections. Those who tried to tamper with it in vain would have to consider the consequences if they were discovered. In front of the country, even one's own son could only step aside. Therefore, even if Luchengdi valued one of his sons, if he knew that one of his sons was causing trouble, he would definitely slap him to death without mercy. In a lighter case, he might be demoted to a commoner. In a more serious case, he would directly lose his life. At this time, even if he killed his son, he probably wouldn't think that Luchengdi was unkind. At this moment, the cauldron had been sent to the palace. It was obvious that this matter was not small. However, to some people, it was still a small matter. Therefore, it could be said that the entire capital was in an uproar. Only Jingwan knew about it now. Jingwan was slightly surprised. "Ah Yuan, aren't you playing a little too big? 9 cauldrons, that thing can be faked. It is not only a national treasure, but also a real antique. There must be a lot of people who are interested in it. Even if ordinary people can't get in touch with it, there is no lack of people in the imperial court who are interested in it. If they find out that it is fake, it will inevitably be counterproductive." Li Hongyuan looked at Jingwan as if looking at a little fool. "It's okay if you are stupid, but don't think that your husband is stupid too." Jingwan choked. This man's mouth was getting more and more poisonous. He even treated her like this. It was so infuriating. "What, are you still not convinced?" Li Hongyuan rubbed Jingwan's head. Jingwan was depressed, but thinking about it carefully, she was indeed stupid. She knew that if it was seen through at a glance, there was no need to play such a self-destructive trick. Therefore, this cauldron, was it that the person who faked it was so clever that no one could see through it, or was it originally one of the 9 cauldrons? Jingwan's heart leaned towards the latter. After all, no matter how clever the method of faking it was, there was no guarantee that it would not be seen through. Therefore, it was just that how did someone get hold of something that had disappeared for thousands of years? And where did he get it from? Actually, he did not take it out at all now. In the future, it would be even more useful. Jingwan asked the question in her heart. However, Li Hongyuan's gaze towards Jingwan did not change. This attitude made Jingwan really want to strangle him to death. Obviously, Jingwan did not get an answer. Actually, this cauldron was indeed real. The bottle that was discovered today was actually not buried by Li Hongyuan. It was originally under the cauldron. Because he knew it was there, Li Hongyuan had designated one of the 81 spell altars. Choosing the location of the spell altars had nothing to do with Li Hongyuan, nor did he participate in it. However, it was very easy to decide one of them. The reason why he knew was because of his previous life. After ascending the throne in his previous life, he spent many years fighting wars. At first, it was not very smooth, but later on, it became smoother and smoother. Li Hongyuan had swept through many places. Once, he accidentally found one of the 9 cauldrons. It was used as an ordinary cauldron by a declining family. After that, Li Hongyuan intentionally or unintentionally searched for the whereabouts of the 9 cauldrons. Of course, he did not spend too much effort. He actually did not believe that the 9 cauldrons would do anything just because he had obtained them. However, he did not want them to fall into the hands of others. He did not know if the 9 cauldrons had really reached the time of their birth. With an attitude that they were dispensable, Li Hongyuan actually found the whereabouts of all the cauldrons in the end. He did not care what methods he used to get them all. Actually, the bottle that appeared now was the most difficult to find. It was also the last to be found. In this life, he made good use of it. As for when he took it out in the future to consolidate his position, it did not matter. It was just one bottle. In his previous life, he was able to get all the cauldrons without knowing it. How could it escape from his hands in this life? Even if there was an accident and it was found by someone else, he could still get it back. In fact, 4 of the 9 cauldrons were in Qi Yuan, and the other 5 were in other countries. As for the 4 cauldrons in Qi Yuan, except for the one buried in the ground, the other 3 were already in Li Hongyuan's pocket. It was worth mentioning that when he was on the throne in his previous life, he did not let the 9 cauldrons appear in the world. Instead, he left them to his son. Although he tried his best to cultivate his son and left behind many capable and important officials, his image as a tyrant was deeply rooted in people's hearts. He was worried that after his death, his son would not be able to control him. With the 9 cauldrons in his hands, it would be different. After all, in his eyes, the 9 cauldrons were just 9 cauldrons. However, the world did not see it that way. It was not the time to tell this to Wan. In fact, sometimes she clearly had doubts, but she stopped her investigation time and time again. Occasionally, she would look forward to finding out something and ask. Then, he did not mind telling her some things in advance. Unfortunately, in fact, as Jingwan said, there were too many evil people who were interested in the cauldrons. When they heard the news, even if it was not early, it was convenient for them to enter the palace, so they all hurriedly entered the palace. He believed that when the news spread, scholars from all over the country who were interested in antiques would rush to the capital. Even if they knew that the chances of seeing the 9 cauldrons were slim, they would not give up. They would use all the methods that they disdained to use in the past, as long as there was a chance to see it. Your Majesty, there are a total of 81 altars built for the imperial noble consort. Will there be other cauldrons in other places? The number of altars is not any other number, but the number of altars is 9 by 9. Originally, it was not very suitable for the imperial Gui Fei, but because it was Master Liaochen, no one questioned it. Now that I think about it, could it be that it coincides with the meaning of the 9 cauldrons? A cabinet scholar was a fanatic in this area. At this moment, he was so excited that he came up with such a bold guess. It sounded a little ridiculous, but there was no strong evidence to refute it. Perhaps it was so. Lu Qingdi's eyes also flashed. If he could really gather all the 9 cauldrons, he would definitely leave a deep mark in history. No emperor could refuse such a thing. Without saying anything, he immediately sent out the blackguards overnight to rush to various places. Although he might be disappointed that there were no other cauldrons, it was also good to supervise the construction of the altars to ensure that nothing went wrong and that the imperial noble consort's ritual could be carried out smoothly. Now, not to mention Lu Qingdi, even the officials in the court hoped that this matter could be done perfectly. However, there were many people who were happy, but there were also many who were unhappy, or even more. Other things aside, the better this matter was, the more benefits would be Li Hongyuan. As for the others, imperial noble consort Su might be able to gain some benefits. However, she was estranged from Li Hongyuan and was disliked by Lu Qingdi. Coupled with the matter of Princess Minxiang, she had not seen Lu Qingdi for a long time. Li Hongyuan had already made them afraid. At that time, he was not a fundamental threat. Now, it was completely different. If this continued, it was hard to guarantee that he would not be a real threat. Once Li Hongyuan got involved, it could be said that they basically had nothing to do with it. Therefore, many people smashed their cups and flipped their tables. After all, according to the arrangement, the collapse would not have happened. It was completely planned. If 2 more people were killed, then the altar would be affected even if it was not affected. Because they did not know the reason, everyone would be suspicious and guess the reason. The craftsmen did not dare to continue because they were afraid of death. The imperial noble consort would also be questioned again. In the end, no one died, and a cauldron appeared. It was fine if it was an ordinary cauldron, but it was one of the 9 cauldrons. For example, at this moment in Prince Rui's residence, the people who served Prince Rui wanted to find a hole to hide in and disappear completely. It was no wonder that Li Hongming had the biggest reaction. In fact, he was very worried now. Since New Year's Eve, he realized that there had been no good news in his residence for a long time. Originally, he was not very anxious about having an heir. He thought that as long as he could have one, there would be no problem. But what if he could not have one? What if his imperial father found out? Then he could be 100% sure that he would have no chance to be the emperor. No one would be assured to give the throne to a person who was destined to have no heir. With such suspicions, the doctor in Li Hongyuan's manor checked his pulse, and the result was that there was no problem. However, even so, he was still worried. He urgently needed a child. He urgently needed a child to prove himself. As long as someone in the harem was pregnant, no matter if it was a Wang Fei, a concubine, or a concubine, it would prove that there was no problem with him. The reason why he did not think that it was the women's problem was that they had been pregnant from time to time. The princess had even given birth. It was impossible that all of them had problems. If one or two pieces of land did not grow seedlings, it might be the problem of the land. But if all the land did not grow seedlings, it was more likely that there was a problem with the seeds. After all, the seeds were the same even though the land was different. In the name of concern, Li Hongming asked people to check the pulse of every woman in his harem. Except for a few who had a cold womb, the rest were all fine. In this way, even if Li Hongming did not want to admit it, he knew that if there was really a problem, it was very likely that it was his own body. Although the doctor did not find the problem, once a person like him had doubts, unless it could be completely dispelled, it would be like a thorn in his heart, scratching his heart and lungs. Therefore, during this period, Li Hongming, who had never been greedy, had been a stud horse almost every day. Even if his eyes were black, his legs were weak, and he drank bowl after bowl of tonics, he still continued. He asked the nannies around him to schedule the periods when the women in his harem were easy to get pregnant. He slept with them one by one, including the concubines who he did not want to take care of. Moreover, he also reached out to those maids who looked good as long as they were not too bad looking. To this extent, he still felt that it was not enough. He suspected that his princess had done something in the harem in the past and had raised two outside. Because Li Hongming had always maintained a good reputation in the outside world, he was very careful in doing this. He knew very well that once it was known, his image would be ruined, and it would be very bad for him. For example, if a bad person did an ordinary bad thing, others might not even blink. But if a good person did the same thing, it might cause a huge wave and be condemned by everyone. Therefore, a good reputation was a sharp weapon, but also a shackle. Li Hongming hid it from the outside world, but he was not so strict with his family, especially in front of his princess. It could be said that he almost said it out loud. It showed that he really trusted Princess Lu very much. However, to give her trust, it was natural for her to do things for him, but he did not give her much in return. Most of the time, he did not even say a word. In his heart, it was probably a great gift for Lady Lu to be his princess. She should treat him as her everything and do everything for him. Even if husband and wife were not one, they were a community of interests. Li Hongming was anxious, and so was Princess Lu. If her husband had no children and had no chance to be the emperor, the consequences would be unimaginable. After all, he had been fighting with his brothers for a long time. There was no way out. If he died, she might be able to live, but she would be imprisoned for the rest of her life, and her children would be. In this way, although she did not say it out loud, Princess Lu was secretly thinking of ways to keep the harem firmly empty. She could not let any negative rumors spread. Although she was very miserable, she still took the initiative to find a woman who could give birth to him. At the same time, she made some warm soup and water. Because she did not know the specific situation, she did not dare to use medicine directly. This tacit understanding lasted for a while. It was only a month, and there was no obvious effect. Knowing that, she still could not sit or stand still. Knowing that Li Hongming was more unhappy than before, Princess Lu personally prepared some food and sent it to the study and sent all the servants out. Li Hongming had no appetite, so he ate a few mouthfuls hastily. "Your Highness, why don't we find a doctor to confirm it?" "Confirm? How can we confirm it?" Prince Rui's face was gloomy, and the teacup in his hand was about to be crushed. It was too late to cover up this kind of thing. Once there was any sign of trouble, even if it turned out to be nothing in the end, there would be trouble. It was not impossible to confirm it. There were two ways. First, he let someone he trusted very much to find a doctor. Whether by coercion or bribery, he had to control the doctor. Second, he could hide his identity and find a doctor among the people. Yes, no matter which way he chose, he could not have anything to do with the imperial doctors, even if they were loyal to him. Because it was hard to know what was in a person's heart, and it was difficult for a person like Prince Rui to trust someone wholeheartedly. Take Princess Lu for example. He believed that she would always stand on his side, but he also suspected that she would secretly harm other concubines in his harem. "Should I tell mother?" Princess Lu said with a little difficulty. Prince Rui was silent for a long time, and the atmosphere was almost suffocating. After a full 15 minutes, Prince Rui slowly said, "Go to the palace tomorrow." His voice was a little hoarse. "It's better to confirm it as soon as possible. In case, it's better to be prepared." "No." Princess Lu suddenly reached out and held his hand. Princess Lu, who had always been dignified and virtuous, had done such a thing at the beginning of her marriage. "Your Highness, you have to believe that there won't be any what if." Prince Rui was a little touched at that moment, but it only appeared for a moment, and he didn't even notice it. Then he calmed down, withdrew his hand, picked up the teacup, and said, Compared to many people who couldn't sleep that night, Jingwan and Li Hongyuan still slept very well." Having an heir might be a problem for Jingwan, but it didn't affect her. In addition, Qin Shufei probably slept well. She went to see the imperial noble consort in her sleep. Qin Shufei calmly told the imperial noble consort about this matter, and finally sighed, "Yuan, that child, usually has a bad temper and looks at everyone with his nose up at the sky. But in reality, he is a sentimental person. His younger sister said that he is much better than those people who have a Buddha's mouth and a snake's heart." The imperial noble consort naturally knew what her son was doing. Although she didn't know the essence of Li Hongyuan's actions, she only knew that he wanted to keep her. Originally, she thought that he made too much of a ruckus and was worried that he wouldn't be able to collect it. In the end, he felt that it wasn't enough and took out the 9 cauldrons. Towards this kind of son, she was really worried and proud. The two intimately spoke some words. Speaking of which, they had coexisted together for more than 10 years. There was no one more intimate than them. Especially Qin Shufei knew that the imperial noble consort originally had the opportunity to completely control her body and make her disappear. However, the imperial noble consort didn't do that and even dissuaded Qin Wang. However, this peach blossom incident developed very quickly. Even without Su Guifei thinking of a way to send someone to Li Hongyuan, at this time, the 9 cauldrons falling from the sky was a joyous event. Although it was the imperial noble consort who brought this wealth, the imperial noble consort had already passed away. As the direct beneficiary, other than the emperor, there should also be Qin Wang. And now, it could be said that Qin Wang didn't lack anything. It was just that his knees were empty. Qin Wang Fei has been in Qin Wang Fu for almost a year. Until now, there is still no good news. Shouldn't the emperor consider appointing 2 Ce Fei to Qin Wang Yi? Moreover, Qin Wang Fei is serving Wang Yi alone. It's really hard. Someone should share the burden with her. Moreover, when it's inconvenient for Qin Wang Fei to serve, wouldn't Wang Yi be wronged? The more Luchingdi listened, the more he felt that it was reasonable. Originally, he was worried that an innocent girl would be cursed by his son. But now, his wife had been by his side for almost a year and was still doing very well. Not to mention whether his fate had changed or not, with his wife supporting him, it shouldn't be a problem to appoint 2 CE Fae. Are there any suitable girls in your families? Now that several important concubines in the inner palace were useless, Luchingdi decided to personally take action and directly asked at the imperial court. The people who planned this probably didn't think that it would go so smoothly. In fact, there were many people who knew about this idea. Not only were they unable to withstand the crying of their daughters at home, but there were also great benefits to be gained here. Therefore, when Luchingdi's words came out, they eagerly stood up to promote their own daughters. As the saying goes, if there is one, there will be two. One after another, the number of people really wasn't small. It seemed that they were all afraid of falling behind. Luchingdi's hot head finally cooled down. When did his evil spawned son become a delicious cake? In the past, when it came to choosing a concubine for his 6th son, each and every one of them avoided it. Now, each and every one of them wanted to be his cheap father-in-law. The nature of this matter was completely different from some people who maliciously supported that evil spawn before. In-laws, that was a good relationship between 2 surnames. This was already hinting at certain things. Luchingdi's expression didn't change. This CE Fae still had to be given, but this person had to be carefully considered. Her status couldn't be too high, but it also couldn't be too low. Everyone might as well go back and prepare a small portrait of your daughters and send it to the palace. Jin wants, let Shu Fei take a good look, and then choose 2 people. As Jingwan's maternal grandfather, although Luo Peishan kept silent, his face was as peaceful as ever. In fact, several real big shots were basically like this, as if this matter had nothing to do with them. Only in the end, the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet stood up, Emperor, should we inform Jin Wangye first? If it was other people, there was no need to deliberately do this. After all, they were bound to participate in the morning court. When encountering a lifelong matter, they would know. Jin Wangye was different. He could close his doors and not go out for a month. Luchingdi wanted to heroically say, no need, but in the end, these 2 words circled around the tip of his tongue and swallowed them back. If he chose someone and directly sent it over, his evil spawn might really not give him face and directly throw the person out. That would be really shameful. At that time, should he punish that evil spawn or not? If he punished, he would be distressed. If he didn't punish, where was the heaven's prestige? In that case, beloved official Luo should take some time to go to Jin Wangfu. Shouldn't this kind of thing be done by his personal chamberlain? The intention of letting Luo Peishan go was actually very obvious. This official obeys. Luo Peishan respectfully responded, without the slightest discomfort. For Luo Peishan, this was really not a big deal. He just said a few words. Once he did it, he could just pat his butt and leave. His granddaughter didn't need his advice, and he didn't need to intervene in this matter. He just needed to wait and watch the show. After the court meeting, Li Hongming went to noble consort Su's place. Princess Lu was already there. Obviously, noble consort Su had already understood the matter. She cared far more about this matter than Li Hongming and Princess Lu. This was because she knew that some problems couldn't be found out. No matter how hard you tried, you couldn't give birth. Even if you could give birth in the past, it didn't mean that you could always give birth, because this problem could come back at any time. Noble consort Su looked very calm at this time. She was so calm that she blocked out everything from the outside world. Then, as if she suddenly realized that there were still people there, she said, "Go back first and wait for my news." Prince Rui and his wife looked at each other. They both found that their mother was very strange today. However, they knew very well what kind of temper noble consort Sue had, so they didn't ask more. Because they wouldn't get an answer even if they asked, they could only say goodbye. After they left, noble consort Sue sent everyone around her out. Then, the calmness that she had maintained collapsed in an instant. Her face suddenly turned pale, and fine beads of sweat appeared on her forehead and the tip of her nose. She couldn't even sit still. She leaned over the gorgeous chair and gasped for breath. Noble consort Sue clenched her teeth. It took her a long time to recover. Then, noble consort Sue sat up and muttered to herself, "Are you taking revenge? Because I drugged your son, you also want my son to have no children. It's been a long time. It's been so long that I've forgotten. Yes, it's been a long time. If it was really you, if you really knew, you would have done it long ago." Noble consort Sue rubbed her temples. She hadn't slept well for a long time. Things had never been smooth again. It could be said that she was exhausted and sometimes even a little hysterical. It was no wonder that she had such a big reaction after knowing what might be wrong with her son. "Good sister, I can take care of you wholeheartedly. However, it's because you've been dead for so many years and still occupy the Emperor's heart. Even if Yuan is a devil, he's still a big threat. Therefore, I can only avoid future troubles. Don't blame me. As the saying goes, every man for himself and the devil takes the hindmost. If it were you, you would do the same. Come in." The palace servant guarding outside the door hurriedly came in. "Your Highness. Tell old Madame Sue to enter the palace." "Yes, Your Highness." Old Madame Sue also acted quickly. Noble consort Sue pulled her mother to talk for about an hour. Noble consort Sue knew that there was one person who could confirm her son's situation, and this person was the traveling doctor who saved Li Hongyuan at White Dragon Temple 2 years ago. Therefore, when noble consort Sue knew that the white ape had fished out her adopted son from the river, she didn't have any doubts in her heart. Because noble consort Sue had personally seen this traveling doctor, and she had also personally experienced his medical skills. She had truly seen what was called bringing the dead back to life. Wasn't the young doctor in Jin Qin Wang Fu very good? But compared with that person, noble consort Sue really felt that Gong Jiu was not enough. Unfortunately, the traveling doctor owed her a small favor and gave her a token. That was more than 30 years ago, and she hadn't married yet. However, the traveling doctor said that as long as he was still alive, he could help once without violating morality. The reason why he said so was that the traveling doctor didn't have a name and didn't have a fixed residence. He would go wherever he went, and it was basically impossible to specially look for him. However, if there was a token and it was handed to a specific place, he would appear within 3 months. 3 months might seem a little too long, but he might have gone deep into the mountains and forests. Moreover, he wasn't from some mysterious organization, and there were people who specially sent him a token. Therefore, it was already very impressive for him to appear in 3 months. For so many years, noble consort Sue had been keeping the token well. Originally, she planned to give it to her son after the throne was confirmed. At that time, whether the one sitting on the throne was her son or not, she thought that it might be useful. Unexpectedly, it was used at this time. The token was taken out of the palace by old Madame Sue. What she had to do now was to wait. Regarding this matter, noble consort Sue was not afraid of the follow-up trouble. First of all, the traveling doctor couldn't know her identity. Second, after so many years, how could such a person remember who he gave a token that was very common to him? In fact, noble consort Sue had thought of keeping the traveling doctor at the beginning. However, as soon as she revealed such a thought, she fainted in the blink of an eye. When she woke up, the traveling doctor had already disappeared. She couldn't even find him. This matter was temporarily like this. Noble consort Su then remembered that her adopted son was going to choose a concubine. She asked someone to call the 2 palace maids that she had carefully trained for her adopted son. The 2 stood respectfully in front of noble consort Su. Their expressions were pleasant, generous, and decent. Not to mention their charm, even their appearance was a bit similar to Jingwan. The 2 looked like this now, but after taking off their clothes, noble consort Su felt that even a woman would tremble and want to have a good time with them, let alone a man. After the training was successful, she originally wanted to find a reason to send them over. Now it seemed that it was unnecessary. After the concubine was chosen, she would directly send them to the 2 people and then bring them to Jean Prince's mansion. She would also be saved from being a bad person. Noble consort Su was very confident about this matter. After all, she was the one who sent them. First, she was the noble consort, so she couldn't refuse. Second, she wanted to be a good daughter-in-law. With her support to fight against Jean Prince's mansion, she naturally had to curry favor with her. https:///11/11807/10751274. Chapter 466. At this time, Jingwan still didn't know that noble consort Su was still sparing no effort to disgust her. Of course, noble consort Su herself might not think so. In her view, it was true that she wanted to divide Li Hongyuan's favor towards Jingwan, but it was more for her son's sake. Her son was of noble birth, how could he only have one person by his side? How aggrieved would he be? And, that's right, she was a good Mufei who wholeheartedly cared for her son. Even if her son was estranged from her now, she believed that he would change his mind in the future. How could there be overnight enmity between mother and son? It was just that, if noble consort Su found out one day, she would be very clear about all the things that she had done to her adopted son. The reason why she was harmonious with her and her son all these years was only because she had value. Sometimes, when she thought about it, Jingwan really wanted to see that scene. Let's not talk about this for the time being. In any case, noble consort Su's plan was destined to fail. Let's just talk about those ministers who were ready to make a move. Even when facing a certain prince that they supported, they would only smile and play Tai Chi. Wang, yeah, you're really thinking too much. Then they sighed, there's an evil creature in the family wholeheartedly pouncing on Jean Qin Wang, wanting to die or live What can this official do? I can't just watch her die, right? Then the expression on their faces eased, Wang, yeah, in fact, this matter is also good for you. Think about it, if this official's daughter becomes Jean Qin Wang's Zifei, in the future, if you have any conflicts with Jean Qin Wang, it might be able to ease a bit. The only thing missing was to say, Your Highness, this official is doing this for you. I really don't have any ill intentions. If they help Li Hongyuan ascend to the throne, it would be a real merit for them to ascend to the heavens in one step. According to the previous situation, it was impossible to do this. Power and wealth were too tempting. This was a gamble. If they won the gamble, they would have everything they wanted. If they lost, it would not be a big deal. As the saying goes, the law cannot punish the majority. Looking at the past, the ones who failed to seize the throne were often those closest to the loser. When a new emperor ascended to the throne, he needed to show benevolence and the demeanor of an emperor. He needed to disregard the past and not stick to one pattern to use talents. And who was the closest to Jean Qin Wang? Wasn't that the Luo family? Therefore, although these people seemed to be doing something stupid and brazen, they were actually calculating in their hearts. If they won, the rewards would be high, but if they lost, the risk would not be high. Cunning. However, in the end, these people overlooked a point. A very important point, and that was Jin Wang himself. Those who were secretly working for Jin Wang looked at their colleagues who had a good relationship with them. They looked at them with complicated gazes and finally sighed. They patted their colleagues' shoulders and walked away. You say, why don't you live a good life and insist on seeking death? It's so easy to stuff people into Jin Wang's side. Do you think it's your turn? No matter how good your calculations are, it's useless to go in the wrong direction. Others may only wear small shoes, but Jin Wang will really kill you. Unfortunately, these words could not be said. Even if their hearts hurt from holding it in, they had to hold it in. Compared to the indignation of Gong Wang, and the others, Rui Wang did not have much reaction. However, recently, even if Rui Wang was still the gentle and polite Rui Wang who was respectful to the wise, people more or less felt that something was wrong. His mental state was not good. Especially those who were old and experienced, they could clearly see the gloominess and hostility in Rui Wang's eyes. This was obviously his mood was not smooth to the extreme. It looked like a big problem that could not be solved for a long time. TSK, Luo Pei Shang confidently and at ease went to Jin Wang Fu and drank a cup of good tea on the way. It was just a matter of one sentence. When he left, he also took Jingwan's 2 pots of flowers. He clearly looked like a pure and elegant old man, but he actually did some hooligan things. He could have just opened his mouth and taken it away. Why did he have to use the word snatch? Jingwan was helpless, but her eyes showed indulgence, as if she was looking at a naughty child. Old child, it really was not fake. Although in the officialdom, he was still skillful and decisive in his actions. Wan, what do you want to say? Li Hongyuan stood beside Jingwan, his tone indifferent. Yuan is talking about the matter of the souffle. Jingwan chuckled, isn't that something to be expected? It's just that I didn't expect it to be so fast. I originally thought that I would have to wait for at least 2 days. I didn't expect these people to be so impatient. However, doesn't this just show that those people are actually very optimistic about Wang Ye? She teased, their eyesight is not bad, but they are a bit slow. They intend to send charcoal in snowy weather, but they can't even add flowers to brocade. Our Jin Wang dislikes it. Li Hongyuan's finger rubbed Jingwan's face, so, how does Wan plan to deal with it? If the emperor didn't intervene, it doesn't matter if I deal with it. But the emperor has spoken, I can't do anything. So, Wang Ye, this time, it's better for you to deal with it personally. Actually, I think that a truly good husband not only has to deal with his own love rival, but also his wife's love rival, understand? Jingwan smiled. Jingwan's words, in Li Hongyuan's ears, may be a bit nondescript, but it didn't prevent him from understanding the meaning. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Jingwan. His gaze was fixed, and no emotions could be seen. Jingwan felt goosebumps all over her body from being stared at by him, just like a frog being stared at by a snake. She couldn't stop herself from taking a step back. Li Hongyuan seemed to know and naturally reached out with his hand. With a little force, he pulled Jingwan back, my love rival. Jingwan wanted to curse. What was that? Wasn't she focusing on the wrong thing? Lauda, why do you always have to hold on to this point and not let it go? Jingwan suddenly got angry. Obviously, I have more love rivals, okay? And they are the kind who can confidently throw themselves at you. If you want, I can only look at them with a smile. I can't have any opinions, let alone say anything. My affairs are so old that they have passed 800 years ago. Why do you still have to hold on to it? Didn't I say it before? Wan can crush and destroy my rotten peach blossoms at will. You can even kill them all. I don't have any objections. However, Wan has always stopped me from doing anything to some people. Li Hongyuan was not guilty at all. He was very self-righteous. Jing Wan was instantly rendered speechless by him. That was a human life. How could she treat it as a real peach blossom and cut it all off? Li Hongyuan gently rubbed the back of Jing Wan's neck. However, Wan is right. Of course, I want to be a good husband. So, I will deal with this matter. I will never let Wan worry. Jing Wan heard him say this and felt even worse. What was that? Asking him to deal with it. Was he really going to destroy the flowers? Could he not be so cruel? Those flowers were actually very delicate and couldn't withstand a round of torture from the King of Hell. If they died, it would be too much. After all, those people just wanted to be pampered and loved. They didn't have to worry about food and clothing. They were also a little vain. In fact, it wasn't a crime no matter where they were. In fact, there were many such people everywhere. Naturally, they didn't deserve to die. Of course, if those people really dared to pounce on her, she would definitely not be polite. There were many ways to get rid of them. But now, just thinking about it, you want to kill them? Well, you can be a little gentler. Li Hongyuan sneered. Sure enough, they are women. Those are people who covet your husband. Jing Wan pursed her lips. With that kind of previous life, unless one was a homicidal maniac, no one could easily disregard life. In Li Hongyuan's previous life, although he had seen Jing Wan's decisiveness when she killed people, there was no fear or hesitation in her eyes. Because that was a real enemy. An enemy who invaded her own country, killed her own people, and destroyed the happiness and peace of countless people. In the end, Li Hongyuan didn't really want Jing Wan to become that kind of ruthless person. In fact, he had never thought that Jing Wan was bad. Now that he saw her like this, he felt a little sorry for her. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her forehead. Don't worry, I won't kill them. At most, I will. Jing Wan's expression naturally eased when she heard this. She rubbed her face against his chest. But after rubbing her face twice, her face became a little stiff and the corners of her mouth couldn't help but twitch. It was all because of Li Hongyuan's next words. If you cripple, disfigure and die, then there is only one way. If you don't die, there are many ways. Li Hongyuan played it down, as if he wanted to give Jing Wan a science lesson of 1,000 ways that wouldn't kill, but could make people suffer so much that they wished they were dead. Jing Wan felt a little hopeless. Her husband was not only a master at destroying others, but also a master at destroying himself. Clearly, he was still a stalwart figure a moment ago, but in a second, he could become the Dark Devil King, the kind that couldn't be darker. Sure enough, she should be like those people outside and firmly believe that the King of Hell would always be the King of Hell. This is your gentler. Jing Wan didn't give up. She felt that perhaps there was still a way to salvage the situation. Li Hongyuan gently raised his eyebrows and lowered his head to meet Jing Wan's gaze. Otherwise. Actually, you can be a little gentler and let them know the difficulties and retreat. Don't you think so? Troublesome. If Wan is not satisfied, then you can do it yourself. I can do it myself. Do I still need you? Jing Wan felt a little irritable. Li Hongyuan's eyes suddenly became meaningful. If you can do it yourself, then you can do it yourself. Jing Wan smiled. Prince, this concubine feels that there is no problem with my words. If you have any doubts, then there must be something wrong with your ears. Tell me, what is the problem? Li Hongyuan nodded. Then, Wan, remember what you said. In the future, when you can do it yourself, don't look for your husband. You know, if we continue with our plan, there will only be more people who want your husband in the future. Jingwan felt a little uncomfortable. She seemed to have dug a deep hole for herself, the kind that was so deep that the bottom couldn't be seen. Think about it, if an emperor only had one empress in his harem, how would the officials react? Now, there were people who wanted to give her husband concubines. When that time came, it was likely that the entire court would want to give her concubines. If she really had to deal with it all, then she would not only have to face all kinds of women who brought their daughters to see him all day long, but also the court officials. Not to mention facing such a scene, just now, Jingwan really had nothing left to live for. You can't do this. Jingwan leaned weakly on him as if her bones had been pulled out. Ha! Li Hongyuan only chuckled. There was no need to say the mockery in his words. How can you bear to do this? Your husband is very willing. Li Hongyuan replied faintly and patted Jingwan's back. Your husband is very optimistic about you. Jingwan looked at Li Hongyuan with resentment, hoping that he would change his mind. However, a certain someone's heart was stone. The words, "Do you not love me anymore?" spun on the tip of Jingwan's tongue. Fortunately, her intelligence returned to normal at the last moment. She was sure that once these words came out of her mouth, a certain someone would definitely immediately act up and then personally tell her how much he loved her, how long he wanted to love her, and how long he wanted to stay in bed for as long as she wanted. Jingwan truly felt that it was not easy for her to be able to grasp the temperament of a living king of hell whose moods were constantly changing. Moreover, the next day, Qin Shu Fei received many portraits of young ladies. It was more than what she had expected. Although there were less than 10 people who recommended themselves in court, after all, in the capital, only officials of 4th rank and above could attend court. However, after some people's manipulation, the number of people who knew that Jin Qinhuang was good was not just this number. Zifei, after all, did not have as high a requirement as the Zhengfei. Now that Jin Qinhuang's situation was good, as long as they were not blind, they could basically see it. Naturally, they would be eager to make a move. Not to mention becoming a Zifei, being able to be fancied as a concubine was also not bad. Therefore, the portraits in front of Qin Shu Fei slowly filled up the table. It was obvious that these young ladies in the portraits could not all be those who had fancied Jin Qinhuang. There were bound to be some who were used by their family elders to climb up the social ladder. If there was no one they fancied, it was still fine. At most, they would be endlessly worried about the future. It was also possible that they resented their elders for wanting to marry them off as concubines. If there was someone they fancied, perhaps they would have already cried until their liver and intestines were cut to pieces. Jin Qinhuang had made it clear to the Imperial Gui Fei that he would allow Jingwan to be a couple for the rest of her life. The Imperial Gui Fei naturally did not hide it from Qin Shu Fei. Therefore, when Qin Shu Fei looked at these portraits, there was some rumination in her eyes and also some helplessness. Therefore, how should this matter be handled? She could casually pick two, but she was certain that those two young ladies would not have a good ending. Wasn't that equivalent to indirectly harming others? If they originally harbored some thoughts, then it was not a big deal. If they were the kind who simply wanted to marry a husband of equal status and live a peaceful and happy life, then wouldn't that be a big sin? How did such a difficult problem fall on her? If she could see Imperial Gui Fei Jijie right now, it would be good, but, Nyang, Gui Fei Nyang is here. Qin Shu Fei's eyes flashed slightly. This was not unexpected. Please come in. Gui Fei Su had specially dressed up today and looked quite spirited. It was just that she had lost a lot of weight. Wearing Gui Fei's outfit, it was obvious that she could not compare to her previous style. Qinxie greets Gui Fei Nyang. Qin Shu Fei respectfully bowed. Logically speaking, Gui de, Shu Xian, and the other 4 concubines should be on equal footing. However, Gui Fei was the head and was still a little higher. Furthermore, Gui Fei Su's status was older than Qin Shu Fei and she also had a son. Qin Shu Fei bowed to her in order to not give anyone a chance to make a mistake. Qin Shu Fei did not show it from the start, but she did things in all aspects without any loopholes. In this aspect, Gui Fei Su admitted that she was inferior. After all, she was once favored and her son had a promising future. Naturally, she was proud. No matter how restrained she was, there were still some places that were a little ostentatious. If one did not pay attention, small problems would occur. This would not happen with Qin Shu Fei. Gui Fei Su looked at her for a moment and suddenly smiled. She hurriedly reached out to help Qin Shu Fei up and then naturally held her arm. There's no need to be so polite between us sisters. Qin Shu Fei smiled gently. Etiquette cannot be ignored. Gui Fei Su seemed a little helpless. You. Younger sister, you know the purpose of this consort's visit, right? Qin Shu Fei nodded and brought her to the previous table. The ones that were sent in today are all here. Imperial concubine Su was also surprised by such a large number. She narrowed her eyes slightly. The precautions she had taken many years ago were indeed correct. At this juncture, seeing that he had the advantage, these officials immediately wanted to chase after him. If she didn't take precautions, her son might really end up with nothing in the end. She could treat her adopted son wholeheartedly, but there was a prerequisite, and that was that he could not compete with her biological son for the throne. However, Gui Fei Su did not think about it. With this so-called prerequisite, could it still be called wholeheartedly? Gui Fei Su casually picked up the scroll at the top and opened it. She carefully looked at it. She had a general idea of which family this girl was from. Afterwards, she looked at the scrolls one by one. The smile at the corner of her mouth did not change. As for the scrolls that she looked at, she divided them into two piles. One pile had more scrolls and the other had fewer scrolls. Qin Shu Fei sat at the side and slowly drank tea. She looked on without batting an eyelid. She had no intention of going forward. It was not until Gui Fei Su finished looking at the last scroll that she seemed to realize that she had overstepped her boundaries. She looked a little embarrassed. Younger sister, I'm really sorry. Because it's Yuan's matter, Ben Gong could not help but, Gui Fei Nyang does not need to be like this. This is human nature. Qin Shu Fei said. That's right. Even if Yuan has some misunderstandings about me now, as a mother, I can't really ignore him. Qin Shu Fei inexplicably felt a little tired. Just as well. I didn't know how to choose before. If Gui Fei Nyang could give me some suggestions, it would naturally be best. After all, you are Jin Qin Wang's Mu Fei. No one knows better than you what kind of woman he likes. After all, we have to serve Jin Qin Wang. Younger sister's words are reasonable. Gui Fei Su sat down at the side. Ben Gong has an impression of some of these girls, but I can't match most of them. It would be better if I could summon them into the palace for a meeting. After all, these portraits are somewhat distorted. Moreover, the girl's conduct is like this. It would be better to meet them in person to know. I also have this intention. Why don't we pass down the message now and have these girls enter the palace in 3 days? What does Gui Fei Nyang think? Qin Shu Fei said very considerately. Of course it's good. However, summoning only these girls is too deliberate. Why don't we summon all the girls of marriageable age? Qin Shu Fei thought, was this disdain that Jin Qin Wang's attention was not high enough? That she did not draw enough hatred? Then we will follow Gui Fei Nyang's wishes. Someone come. Qin Shu Fei told the person who said the words. It was impossible for her to take the blame for nothing. Gue Fei Su was slightly annoyed, but as a Mu Fei who cared about her son, she could not deny it. However, there were two sides to this matter. Either the emperor reprimanded her for stretching her hand too far, or he would be grateful that she cared about her son and did not hesitate to go against his words and soften his attitude. If it was the former, compared to now, it would probably not be worse. If it was the latter, it would naturally be better. Thus, Gue Fei Su smiled and thanked Qin Shu Fei. Afterwards, Gue Fei Su sat for a while and then excused herself with the excuse that she was tired. Qin Shu Fei sent her back and her gaze fell on the scrolls. She casually took out a scroll from the smaller pile and opened it to take a look. After just a glance, she changed two more scrolls. Qin Shu Fei understood in her heart that the candidates that Su Shi liked had high status and good looks. Although the portraits were distorted, the person who drew them did not dare to be too outrageous. After all, if the difference was too big, it could be seen through at a glance. That would be deceiving the monarch. And the people who chose were not restricted to which faction they belonged to. After all, the so-called factions, other than a few people, the others could not be clearly distinguished and their temperament was still open for discussion. At least, on the surface, it seemed that Gue Fei Su truly wanted to choose two good Su Fei for her adopted son. Regardless of whether it was true or false, or if there was a deeper meaning, in any case, it would only be a waste of effort and it would not succeed. As such, Qin Shu Fei also let go and just went through the motions. It was just that, on the day these young ladies entered the palace, Qin Shu Fei saw Jingwan. At first, she was surprised, but then she felt that it was normal. Gue Fei Su did such a thing and could not be blamed. After all, choosing a Su Fei for Jin Qin Wang, letting Jin Qin Wang Fei take a look and listen to her opinion, such a good mother-in-law was rare. However, only a few people knew that Gue Fei Su was only trying to discuss Jingwan. I gave you people, you refused. I asked you to raise your own maidservant, you refused. Then now, the emperor has personally spoken, can you still refuse? Everyone should have a taste of choosing people for their own husband. Of course, there were many people who came to watch the excitement. It could be said that all the imperial concubines in the inner palace, except for the empress, had gathered. Even Wei Xianfei, who was confirmed to be pregnant with the dragon seed, was surrounded by people and came in a grandiose manner. Seeing that Wei Xianfei was surrounded so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through, many imperial concubines gritted their teeth and tore their handkerchiefs. This woman was obviously a princess of an enemy country and was disliked by the emperor. In this case, she was actually pregnant. And those who used all their means but still ended up with nothing, couldn't wait to eat her alive. Thus, the concubine selection had not yet begun, and here, there was a palace drama. However, Wei Xianfei was too well protected. No matter how others provoked her, she ignored them. She was very calm and did not give others a chance to get close to her. Therefore, those concubines with ulterior motives were helpless in the end. They could only stare at Wei Xianfei's belly, which was not yet obvious. They wished they could stare at it until it disappeared. Compared to them, whether it was Gue Fei Su or Qin Shu Fei, they were very calm. There was even a sincere joy on their faces, as if they were really looking forward to the birth of this child. Qin Shu Fei was not interested in how others were doing. She did not care at all. Whether she was pregnant or not, whether she was able to give birth or not, she did not need to worry about it. The people around Wei Xianfei would prepare everything properly and let Wei Xianfei sit peacefully. Because this matter was handed over to Qin Shu Fei, Gue Fei Su did not make her presence known. At this time, she was playing the role of a good mother-in-law. She called Jingwan to her side and talked to her with a kind face. She sincerely taught Jingwan how to get along with the concubines in the future. It was nothing more than not putting them in her eyes. No matter how much her husband liked them, they were just playthings and could not surpass her. Jingwan was definitely going to have goosebumps. However, since Gue Fei Su wanted to show motherly kindness, Jingwan could also show filial piety. Imperial Mother had to take care of her body. She was not young to begin with. If she did not pay attention, Imperial Father might feel that it hurt his eyes when he saw her in the future. Moreover, those servants flattered the strong and stepped on the weak. If Imperial Mother's spirit was not good, Minxiang might be bullied and so on. In short, if you disgust me, I will choose to step on your sore spot. No matter how much you disgust me, in the end, things will not work out. I will step on your sore spot. Who's afraid of who? Gue Fei Su smiled, but the gaze she looked at Jingwan with was as if it was dipped in poison. Jingwan also smiled, but her eyes were cold and gloomy. In the eyes of others, this mother-in-law and daughter-in-law pair was happy and harmonious, as if they were biological mother and daughter. Qin Shu Fei did not deliberately arrange anything. She just let these girls do whatever they wanted. If they were willing, they could perform for everyone to see. If they had such thoughts, they would naturally compete to show it at this time. In fact, the general situation could be seen from their dressing. Regardless of whether it was voluntary or not, those who were willing would dress up beautifully. They wanted to be in the limelight and attract attention. Those who were not willing would try their best to conceal themselves. They would not stand out if they did not compete. Qin Shu Fei occasionally called one or two people to come forward and talk. She did not have any preferences and just casually picked. Occasionally, she would turn back to ask Gue Fei Su and Jingwan for their opinions. Gue Fei Su was busy coming up with ideas, looking as if she was especially anxious for Jingwan. Jingwan sat quietly with a tranquil smile. Imperial Mother and Imperial Concubine Shu can make the decision. Daughter-in-law believes in your taste and will definitely pick the best. In Imperial Consort Su's opinion, Jingwan was also used to pretending. At this moment, even she couldn't tell if she was really forcing a smile or not. However, Imperial Consort Su thought that with Madame Luo's jealous nature, she would definitely be unhappy at this moment. If she was unhappy, Imperial Consort Su would be happy. If Jingwan knew what she was thinking, she would probably give her 3 words, "You're thinking too much." In this way, it was lively for most of the day. Other than some harmless small framing between these girls, nothing else happened. Towards the end, many concubines felt bored and returned to their own palaces one after another. Qin Shu Fei made the decision to leave a meal in the palace. Then, Qin Shu Fei, Gue Fei Su, and Jingwan exchanged opinions. It seemed that they already had a plan in mind. Jingwan still did not have any objections. Gue Fei Su even said in a seemingly angry and resentful tone, "You child, those unfinished words were really full of twists and turns." She looked at Qin Shu Fei with eyes full of helplessness. In the end, she said, "Since that's the case, you can leave the palace and return to your residence. This concubine will discuss the final choice with Gue Fei Su." Was this not giving her a chance to speak with Gue Fei Su alone? Jingwan smiled. Then, this daughter-in-law will take her leave. Did she think that Jingwan could not interact with Gue Fei Su in private just because she could not? It could only be said that Gue Fei Su was naive. In fact, Li Hongyuan had already ordered people to investigate clearly who was interested in these girls. The characters of these girls were also stripped clean. However, Li Hongyuan did not even look at them. He directly indicated that he would choose those who looked good on the surface but were dirty on the inside. In this way, he did not have to hesitate at all. Wan knew about this. Based on her character of abhorrence of evil, there was no need to worry that she would not be able to bear it. Then, Qin Shu Fei had already received accurate information about which two people were to be chosen. Thus, she did not have any psychological burden and exchanged opinions with Gue Fei Su. Thus, Gue Fei Su, who was kept in the dark, felt that it was not bad. The most important thing was that one of the girls was from the Su family. That year, when Gue Fei Su chose Li Hongyuan as his Zhengfei, the first one was a girl from the Su family. In the end, it was that kind of ending. She naturally felt regretful. Although she sent in a Ce Fei, with her help behind the scenes, it was not impossible for her to take the position of Zhengfei in the future. In fact, Gue Fei Su did not have any opinions about who would take the position of Zhengfei. However, because Jingwan disobeyed her, she did not like Jingwan very much. Thus, she was very keen to chase Jingwan away. Therefore, from the beginning, Li Hongyuan did not plan to find Lu Qingdi. He was very clear about Lu Qingdi's moral character. Once he had made up his mind, it was very difficult to change. Thus, Li Hongyuan was too lazy to talk nonsense with him and rejected this time. As long as those officials did not give up, there would be a second time, a third time. It was better to get it done once and for all. After the candidates were confirmed, the imperial decree was sent down the next day. The high officials and nobles in the capital basically knew about it at the first moment. Those who had the intention but were not chosen naturally had a fierce temper. And those who did not have any thoughts, let out a big sigh of relief. However, those who were concerned about Jingwan naturally wrote letters to inquire. They did not dare to say it clearly, afraid that she would be sad. Jingwan only replied with 2 words, "Don't worry." They did not understand the specific meaning, but it was not good to continue to ask. Because it was a Ce Fei, there was not so much attention. The time to carry the person into Jin Wangfu was half a month later. Jin Qin Wangfu didn't send out any news, so everyone could only wait quietly. After that, Imperial concubine Su secretly sent the 2 prepared young ladies over. At this time, everyone was well aware of the meaning of Imperial concubine Su sending people over. Therefore, even if they were sullen, they could only endure it. Time flew by and 10 days passed. Then, thunder exploded in the capital. One of the Ce Fei designated for Jin Wangfu went to Bailong Temple to burn incense and return a vow. Somewhere along the way, the ground suddenly collapsed and a hole appeared. The horse sprained its foot and overturned the carriage. The young lady was thrown out of the carriage and her head happened to hit a stone. She fainted on the spot. When she was sent back to the Fu and woke up, she was stunned. It should be known that there were 2 servant girls in the carriage and the coachman in front. Several people were also thrown out. At most, their skin was broken. Other than that, nothing happened. In such a situation, no one would think that it was a coincidence because it was too much of a coincidence. How many people began to mutter in their hearts? Could it be that this Jin Wangfu not only jinxed his wife, but also his concubines? And the most frightened was still that young lady's family. Because the palace maid that Imperial concubine Su sent over was obviously prepared for Jin Wangfu, guarding the stove for that young lady. The pot of medicine on the stove inexplicably exploded and then her face was injured. At this point, how could they still dare to think of sending their family's young lady to Jin Wangfu? The remaining Su family's young lady immediately became a bird startled by the twang of a bow. Trembling with fear, she was even careful when eating and drinking. The palace maid beside her was also deeply affected. No matter what kind of beautiful future Imperial concubine Su promised, her small life was threatened. How could she think of anything else? Even so, that palace maid stepped on a pearl that had been dropped earlier. Just like that, she fiercely fell. Her face was not injured, nor was her arms or legs injured. However, her ear was inexplicably injured. That Su family's young lady almost went crazy. The next day, she was going to Jean Wangfu.o. At this time, she was shouting that she was not going to marry. Similarly, she wanted to break through the heavens in terms of riches and honor. However, it was already at this juncture, how could she not marry? And when imperial concubine Su found out about this situation, her face was especially ugly. However, she had no other choice because these incidents did not seem to be man-made. And on the day of the official marriage, Jean Qin Wangfu prepared a banquet as usual. However, all the invited guests did not dare to enter the door and were still observing. If this Su Shi could smoothly enter the door, then they would go. If she could not, then they would just treat it as if they did not know about this matter. Although she was not the main concubine and did not need to be welcomed by Li Hongyuan, and the standard was far inferior, but in the end, she was still a secondary concubine. A certain scene was still necessary. Young Lady Su cried to the heavens and scrambled the earth, unwilling to get on the sedan. There was no other way. Su family could only give her a little medicine. However, fearing that something would happen, the dosage was very light and only let her sleep a little. Halfway through, young Lady Su woke up and made a ruckus in the bridal sedan for a while. The people outside saw the commotion and felt that the situation was not bad. At least, she was spirited. Perhaps because she had accepted her fate, it was quiet after that. When they carried her to the side door of Jean Wangfu, Eunuch Mu, who was the chief steward, was waiting. However, when the matron of honor entered the sedan and prepared to help her down, she turned her head and rolled out. Her face was pale with fright and she trembled as she pointed inside the sedan. "What's wrong? This person is dead." Mu An's face was unhappy. He lifted the sedan by himself and took a few glances before retreating. She really died. What bad luck. There was no surprise on his face, as if this was completely expected. Someone go and call the Fu doctor over to see how she died. Compared to Eunuch Mu, the other people who came to send the bride were not so calm. One by one, they retreated far away. Eunuch Mu indifferently swept a glance. "It's not like you are marrying our Wang Ye. Can Wang Ye jinx you? Our family has been following Wang Ye since childhood and has always been very good." These words were simply the truth. The person in the sedan was really jinxed by Jean Wang Ye. She was even more miserable than the other girl and directly lost her life. This time, it was not Gong Jiu who came, but the Fu doctor of Jean Wangfu. He went in to check and quickly retreated. "Eunuch Mu, this girl was scared to death. Tisk, so it can't be blamed on our Wang Ye. However, she also doesn't have good fortune to be so timid. Alright, send him back to where he came from." "A dead person, do you still want to enter Jean Qin Wangfu?" Mu Gonggong swung his hand and led the people of the Wangfu into the door. With a bang, the door was closed. The people who came to send the bride looked at each other in dismay. In the end, they could only send her back to Su family while trembling with fear. They absolutely did not dare to behave atrociously in Jean Wangfu. When Eunuch Mu said that it had nothing to do with Jean Wangfu, they did not believe it at all. Because there were many people who paid attention to it, the news that Su family's girl died and was sent back to Su family immediately spread out. Alright, go do what you need to do. There was no need to go to Jean Wangfu. In fact, there was a bit of a feeling in their hearts. When the news spread to the palace, the cup in noble consort Su's hand slipped and shattered. Lu Qingdi was also in a daze. Finally, he lamented and threw this matter to one side. He did not care about it at all. He did not have the slightest bit of guilt that an innocent person would end up like this because of his words. In Jean Wangfu, Li Hongyuan hugged Jingwan and laughed. The more he laughed, the happier he became. He even buried his face in Jingwan's neck. His shoulders were trembling, looking particularly neurotic. https //11/11807/1089098. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.